12 o'clock on your Friday afternoon. Welcome in. It is now the halftime show here on the game. Tyler Head, Terry Ford will be along here in just a couple of minutes as we have a whole lot to discuss as we finally got our formal introduction to Paul Mainieri as the new head coach at the University of South Carolina yesterday with his press conference. We had it for you here on the game. You heard from Paul Mainieri talking with Jay and Elijah on the halftime show yesterday. Coach Tanner was on there. We heard from Terry Rooney, heard from Mainieri. A whole lot to get into over the course of the next couple of hours with breaking down everything that was said across all the media stuff yesterday. But, you know, focusing specifically on Coach Mainieri, you always hear that first impressions are everything, that you have what people make a judgment of you within like the first 8 to 10 seconds of meeting you, and that usually kind of sets the tone for how that relationship is going to end up going. So Paul Mainieri needed to, the old cliche, win the press conference yesterday by saying all the right things to get the fan base excited and to give the fan base a reason to believe in what he's going to be doing and the staff's going to be doing here with South Carolina baseball starting in 2025. And, you know, as I'm listening to him talk for, you know, the 30 minutes or so that he was up there, and he gives very long-formed answers, which is a much different shift from, you know, Kingston being a little bit more short and not as detailed in some of his answers. I came away from it excited, because I heard a lot of things that I wanted to hear from Coach Mainieri, talking about championships, talking about the plan, talking about, you know, focusing on the fundamentals, focusing on, you know, using your gut feeling instead of analytics in every kind of situation. Like, he really, in my opinion, checked all the boxes of what I was looking to hear from him in his press conference. Now, again, it's just a press conference. You have to go out there and actually execute on the field. But the difference, and look, I wasn't here when Coach Kingston was hired as the head coach or when he was introduced in his press conference, you know, back in 2017, I guess. But the difference between somebody that has come in and never proven themselves quite to the level that Coach Mainieri has, when they say things about, you know, I'm sure Kingston talked about winning championships and doing all those kind of things, but you never have that track record of him backing it up to that point. When Coach Mainieri goes out there and says, we're going to win championships, we're going to focus on this, we're going to focus on that, we're going to build the roster this way, we're going to put emphasis on this and put emphasis on that, you can go back and look at his track record and say, okay, here's specific examples of him doing that exact thing in his time at LSU, in his time at Notre Dame, so on and so forth. So you come away believing what you hear out of him yesterday. And again, I think he knocked the press conference out of the park.
You believe it because, well, he goes, oh, and I've done it, by the way.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you we're going to win.
Exactly.
And has a coach ever got up and said, I don't know if we're going to win or not?
Yeah.
Maybe.
No.
No. Everyone gets up and says, we're going to win. We're going to win championships. We're going to do this and we're going to do that. No, and we're going to bite kneecaps and eat ankles. And
how great would it have been if he said that yesterday, by the way?
So good. Could you see him get up, especially because he's 67 years old,
right,
and he's got a real folksy kind of way about him. And you see him go like this, you know, here at South Carolina, you know, I was telling my wife that we're going to win, and we're going to win at a high level, and we're going to win championships, and we're going to bite kneecaps, and we're going to eat people's ankles, and when they knock us down, we're going to get up, and we're going to bleed all over them.
We're going to put nails in the bat and just go to town on these guys.
How great was that? And without blinking and without changing his tone.
Yeah, just completely like even keel.
It would have been so funny.
We're gonna rip their heads off, and we're gonna stomp them into the ground.
Yeah, we're going to disembowel them right there on Founders Field. It would have been so good. But that's the thing. Everyone's going to win.
Sure.
And everybody's going to get you back to where you used to be, or take you to places you've never been, or keep you going the way you are, right?
You can almost play bingo with
Absolutely,
these kind of things,
sure.
right?
But when a guy has done it in multiple places, then you kind of shake your head when you're listening, going, oh, yeah, he knows what's up.
Yeah. You can point to specific examples. Well, he did it there, did it there, and did it there.
And you know, if you look back, he took over Notre Dame, was in really good shape because of Pat Murphy. Mm-hmm. LSU, obviously an iconic program, probably needed a little lift up.
Sure.
Because LSU had fallen a little bit since Skip Bertman and needed kind of a push back up to where they used to be. Mm-hmm. So he's taken like two different situations, right?
Right.
And he's, you know, achieved at a high level. And I think, for me, I'm not a win the press conference guy, so to speak, because, I mean, already... Do you remember the great moments in Bill Belichick's opening press conference in New England?
No.
Remember the great moments in that iconic press conference that Steve Kerr or Phil Jackson had when they took over franchise in the NBA?
No.
How about that great Joe Torre press conference when he took over the Yankees?
No.
Now, how about Nick Saban? How are the Nuggets from Nick Saban when he showed up at Bama?
No.
You know what I remember, though, of press conferences? Goofy stuff like Adam Gase's eyes, goofy Adam Gase eyes.
Yeah.
Or the really creepy, look like it was in some dude's basement from 1970, Pig Suey, Bobby Petrino press conference at midnight.
You know what's the most memorable press conference of Bill Belichick is taking the Jets head coaching job before becoming the
For
Patriots
6
head coach.
minutes.
For 6 minutes. Like, that's more iconic than anything else.
You know, you remember that, too? He took the job. He's like, I'm done. I resign. I want nothing to do with you people.
Undefeated as the Jets coach.
It's true. Best Jet, maybe besides Weeb Eubank, second best Jets coach in history.
By the way, you know, Jets fans just had to be looking at what he was doing in New England. Like, are you kidding me?
No.
We had that guy.
I'll give you one just for a real second. For me, the Browns left Cleveland to be the Ravens. You know who the head coach of the Browns were?
That was Bill Belichick.
Yep.
That's right.
Art Modell hated him. Browns owner hated Belichick. Said, we got to get a new start in Baltimore. We need a coach who's going to be fan-friendly.
You know who's the DC? Nick Saban.
I know. Well, that staff is crazy. Kurt Ferentz was on that staff.
Yep.
I mean, if you look at that staff in Cleveland with Bill Belichick, you'll go like this, oh, my God.
Right.
You know who was not quite a GM yet, but was hanging around in Cleveland was Ozzie Newsome at the time. He wasn't the GM.
Right. That's right.
I mean, the talent in the administrative coaching arena with Bill Belichick's team in Cleveland, you sit and go, how didn't they go 15-1 or 16-0? Look at this.
But that was the start of the tree.
Yes. And so anyway, the press conferences, we think about all these great coaches. If you think about how many of them had these iconic press conference moments, there'd be none, pretty much, right? And so I've never been a press conference guy, but I thought Mike Yuva made a really good point on Gamecock Central yesterday. He put up a post saying one reason why winning the press conference could be more important now than it used to be was NIL.
Sure.
Because if fans are watching this press conference, they're getting all lathered up. Give me my ATM card. Let's go to the website.
I was going to say, they're standing there with their money in hand. Like, do I want to put it down or do I want to hold on to it?
So I think Mike makes a point. Again, I don't think the press conference makes or breaks you as a coach. But I do think from an NIL point of view, if you can make X amount of number of fans feel good about what you said and the direction your plan is to take them, you might start, cha-chinging.
Well, you're also sending a message, and it's important to note that there were several players on the team that were sitting there, Eli Jones, Talmadge, Lee Croy, Messina, guys like that were sitting in the press conference watching him. And we always talk about coaches using the press conference as a way to talk to their players. I mean, you're making your first impression on those guys really in person. I know they had like a Zoom meeting earlier on this week, but that's probably the first time a lot of them got to hear from him actually in person. And you're selling the program to those guys that have the ability to go somewhere else, or in Cole Messina's case, go to the pros. Like, here's your spiel on why you should come back here and play again.
You know what I thought was really, really interesting? And you hit the point that I was going to get to about the players being there. He's already talked to them via Zoom, right?
Sure.
So he's already given them, I know it's clunky on Zoom. Anybody's ever done Zoom meetings, they're clunky.
I'm sorry, what? Your microphone's off. Hang on, say that again.
You're on mute.
He just...
Every one of these bleeping meetings we do now on Teams or Zoom, always, hey, mute. You're on mute.
But they're so busy talking they can't hear you saying it, so they go for like 3 minutes.
They're cooking,
and at some point you just start nodding like, yeah, sounds great.
You go like this. Yeah, it's too late. It's just too late to fix this now. Go, and we'll act like what you said was really deep and insightful.
Sure. Clap.
I think he smiled. I think he made a funny there. Quick, everybody laugh.
Oh, no, he's telling a story about his dead dog. I shouldn't have laughed.
Oops. But so he was on a Zoom meeting with these guys.
Right.
So obviously they heard enough that intrigued them to now show up.
Right.
And I think that's a really good sign. And look, they got the internet like the rest of us. All you got to do is go Google search Paul Mainieri, and you go like this. Wow.
Yeah.
Whoa. We got a dude.
And he's not that far removed from being in the game. Like, if this was somebody that retired 20 years ago.
10. Or
even 10 years ago, it's like, man, who is this guy, by the way? Like, he's still relevant enough with today's crop of players that name should mean something.
Think about this. He was on the field last year when LSU celebrated because, by the way, those players played for him.
Yes.
So you're right. It hasn't been like this guy has been away even 5-7 years.
Right.
Players, he might have recruited some of the guys at South Carolina, the older players.
Right.
So this whole thing, some people are acting like, he retired in 1996.
Yeah.
And then went on some mission in Tibet. And then showed up like one of those stupid movies, like super, like what was one of the early Batman movies? Batman went off to to Tibet or whatever, and then came back, more Batman-y or whatever happened in that one. I watched that one went off. I was half asleep. That was one of the Christian Bales, right? He took off and went away somewhere and then came back.
That was the first one. Yeah,
right.
The Batman Begins.
Right. So I mean, he didn't do that. He retired because of health issues, the neck. Stepped away, was still around the team in LSU.
Sure.
And then what? Geez, Tyler, after 1 year, he had sniffed around Notre Dame and sniffed around Miami. He turned down the Miami gig last year. Mm-hmm. So obviously he has been feeling better since last year. And that's the only thing to me, the age thing, the being away from the game for 3 years thing. I don't think, just for me personally, I wouldn't be as concerned about that if I was a Gamecock fan. The only thing I would be concerned about, if anything, out of the three things we hear about, could the neck thing show up again?
That is true.
That's the only. And if he is healthy, I believe this guy is going to win big. I really do.
And again, you can't tell everything just from a 45-minute press conference, but the way he talks, the way he moves around, he seems to be in pretty good shape and health for somebody that is going to be 67 years old when the season starts next year. So, he's not on death's door by any means or anything like that. Like,
he didn't walk in with a cane.
No, he didn't. He doesn't have 1 foot in the nursing home by any means.
They didn't have to go, Paul, over here. Coach, over here.
He seems to be of good sound in mind. I think he's going to be just fine.
Right. I mean, so I think, and the reason I think this guy will win big if his health holds up is because he's won big at LSU. He's won big at Notre Dame. He's got a stadium named after him, for the love of God. He won so much at St. Thomas. He has won and won and won and won on the highest of levels, the level that this fan base wants to get back to.
Right.
He's got a heck of a coaching staff. I mean, you got two guys who used to be a head coach, an up-and-comer that everybody loves from Virginia. This is a really good staff, and they're going to help him. Whatever he needs to learn from the last 3 years, you got three guys who can totally help you get up to speed.
And I thought it was good that he said, I'm not afraid. I'm going to lean on these guys. These guys are going to help me, and I'm going to place a lot of that responsibility on them with some of these things that I'm not as familiar with. I thought that transparency was really good.
Yeah, and I think we're going to play a ton of sound today. We've got Paul Mainieri stuff coming up in the next segment. We're going to play some Ray Tanner. We're going to get Monty Lee in, Terry Rooney. We'll hear from the guys who are cleaning up after the press conference.
Right.
I mean, a lot of really good stuff. You pulled a lot of great stuff, whether it was from Jay and Elijah's show yesterday, 3 to 6 from the Cockaboose, or from the pressers themselves. We're going to get a lot of it in. And Mainieri answered questions that this fan base had to ask, because partly about him and partly about why the last regime didn't get them where it wanted to be.
Yep.
I thought some of the answers were pretty much, if you're a Gamecock fan, you're shaking your head yes to a lot of things you heard yesterday.
Sure.
Again, it's not about winning press conferences. It's about you want to hear something, and you're hearing what you want to hear. Now, again, none of this matters if you don't take the field and pull W's.
But for the 200 some odd days we have until the season starts, you feel pretty good about where you're at. That's
right. Absolutely. All right, halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler, and Ed Bird's here running the show. And we're going to come back here from Paul Mainieri. If you missed any of this yesterday, play some sound from the new South Carolina baseball coach. That's coming up. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, Ed Bird till 3 on the game. 1331 Gadsden Street in the Vista. Write that address down. This number, too, 803-978-2025. If you want to get new appliances for the kitchen, if you want to do something about the plumbing that's driving you crazy, you want new fixtures, new lighting, you'd like a really cool tub that you can just sit in and chill, bubble bath, candles, shut the door, tell the kids, unless you're on fire or a bone sticking out of you, stay out of here. If you want to redo the house in any way, shape, or form like we're talking about, go to experts. People who have done this for over 70 years combined. Go to the Nest. We just gave you the number, the address. They will sit down, go over your goals and wants and vision, and they'll do it within your budget, and they'll take you around the fantastic showroom on Gadsden and get you set up. Again, it is the Nest, 803-978-2025 in the Vista. Give them a call, and that vision you want for your home, they'll make it happen for you at the Nest. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head, Ed Bird here on the game up until 3. Big day yesterday. Paul Mainieri, his introductory press conference at South Carolina. Ed, we're going to hit a bunch of cuts here, my friend. We're going to go right down the road. Boom, boom, boom. We're going to start off with cut one. Because, look, the three things I've heard the most, and I get the concerns on all three. A is Mainieri will be 67 years old when the first pitch is thrown for South Carolina's baseball season in 2025. Yep. Totally understand. 2, has been out of the game for 3 years. And, a few things have changed.
Just a little bit. And
how is he going to adjust to the new world order of college athletics? And 3, he left because of a health issue. Is that in any way, shape, or form still a concern? I understand all three. Mainieri starts off talking about his age and health. Cut one there, Ed Bird. Hit it up there with Coach Mainieri.
Ray mentioned that it didn't end the way I wanted to. It wasn't because I was fired. It wasn't because I was forced out, but I was having some neck problems, and it was just physically taxing on me. I was still a young 63 years old, but it just, I was dealing with these issues. Well, we dealt with them after I retired, and as each year has passed by, this is the 3rd year I've been out, I have felt better and better and better with each passing year. And right now I'm standing in front of you at 66 years old, but believe me, that's just the number. I don't feel anything close to 66 years old. I feel like I'm 40 years old again. I am so excited about being here and doing this job.
67 is the new 40.
Yeah, practically.
Now, honestly, look, you'll know when the grind starts.
Sure.
Right? I mean, that's the true test of this, is once you really get into the grind, you see how you feel. But he look, again, whatever, like you said earlier, whatever it's worth, looked really healthy, looked energized, wasn't moving around like some dude who's going to be 67 on an opening day.
And if he played golf as much as he has told us he has over the past 3 years and hasn't had any problems, I feel like coaching shouldn't be an issue.
Oh, golf, you're not out there running triathlons, but you're twisting and torquing your back and your neck and everything else when you play golf, especially, the few times I play when you hit and you got to twist your neck to watch the ball go in the water, the woods, take it out a windshield in the parking lot. So, I mean, obviously, it's obvious. He wouldn't be standing there if he thought his health in any way, shape, or form was a problem.
Sure.
If there was any doubt, if he was 93% sure, he wouldn't be standing there.
Right.
So, and like I said, we will see once the grind starts, but the health thing for him, he's like, it's not a concern. I'm good. All right, cut to Ed Bird. The other thing is the approach to NIL, transfer portal, because again, 3 years later, these things are a lot more of a deal than they were 3 years ago when Mainieri stepped away. Here's the new Carolina coach talking about his approach to NIL in the portal.
Well, let me tell you how I'm going to approach him, okay? I'm going to lean on my coaching staff extremely hard, okay? I'm going to depend on these guys, okay? I don't know exactly how this all works, but I'm learning a lot. I've learned a lot in the last 3 days with these guys. I think between the two of them, I've probably had 30 conversations and another 40 text messages while I've been in Baton Rouge and they've been here. So we're going to get this thing figured out. We're going to have it, have a really good plan going forward, and I'll become more and more involved as time goes on.
And look, that's what you want to hear.
Sure.
And we talked about this last week. You got guys who have been around this the last 3 years. You got 3 guys on your coaching staff, all have been deeply involved in recruiting, the understanding the NIL, the portal, all these things. They get the lay of the land that you might not, and you're smart enough to say, I'm going to lean on these guys.
Well, and I don't think it's going to be one of those things that, let's say he's here for the full 5 years, that he's never going to get used to. No, he's going to get up to speed on this. He's just going to lean on these guys in the meantime that have been around this game for the past couple of years, that know the ins and outs of this, and maybe know things that he's not even thinking about right now that apply to the transfer portal and apply to NIL. And eventually he's going to get it, and he's going to be able to handle a little bit more on his own. But being able to divvy up those responsibilities between these assistants is going to be a very smart thing to do until he gets comfortable enough to be able to do some of those things himself.
This is not like you're trying to figure out the math problem in the movie Good Will Hunting, right?
Right.
I mean, the more you get around it, look, how many coaches do you think are navigating the portal in the NIL world and doing a solid job who can't stand it?
Oh, probably every single one.
So whether Paul Mainieri likes this new world or not, he just is going to have to adapt to it, and he knows it, and he's got people around to help him adapt to it. This isn't about liking or hating it.
It's not. And when we think about the portal, because it existed when he was a coach, just not to the degree and openness that it is now, where I think it's going to be more about like dealing with just the sheer volume of guys that you're looking at in the portal, in addition to try to hang on to the team that you have right now. So that might be a little bit of, again, kind of trying to figure out, okay, who's going to be the one kind of, and again, it seems like Joe Hendry's the person that was really good at this at Virginia that, is keeping the eye on the portal and coming up with guys that, maybe you're looking at to bring in on your roster in addition to kind of seeing what the holes that you need on your team to be filled are. So again, I think Mainieri's going to get up to speed on this pretty quickly. He's just going to lean on these guys in the meantime to help them get there.
Smart coaches bring assistants in to fill the holes.
Right.
And if you're Paul Mainieri, yeah, he knows. He hasn't been around this thing in 3 years. It's changed. The portal, you can jump in and go anywhere you want anytime you want.
Right.
So that's changed. The NIL world has become a gigantic force in college athletics, and you got to know how to handle that. And you've got people around you who have been around the last 3 years, and you're like Mainieri said, I'm going to lean on them, and I'm going to get up to speed as I use them as my bridge. It's just smart. It's what you do. You don't go, I got the whole thing figured out. I got this. No, he's being honest. Yeah, I got to lean on these guys. They know it better than me right now, but I'll evolve. I'll get it. And that's what you want. That's another answer that you wanted to hear was, I got guys around me who are going to help. And I'll learn it, but I also have guys who know what's up.
Right.
All right, we'll get back in here. More Paul Mainieri. We're going to hear from the new coach. He's going to talk about, I guess the next one we're going to get to is the key to elevate the program. Because the other thing, if you're a Gamecock fan, you want to hear this. All right, man, I've heard about your age. I've heard about NIL, transfer portal. I get it. Great stories. Love to hear about your, growing up. But how the bleep you getting the Gamecocks back to Omaha?
Yeah.
We're going to hear Paul Mainieri, his keys, or his key to elevate this program back to where it used to be, and it should be. Halftime show. It's Terry Ford, it's Tyler Head, it's Ed Bird. We're here till 3 here on the game. what you're talking about and we're talking about and everybody's talking about is the Paul Mainieri presser yesterday. Also, Ray Tanner spoke. Monty Lee had a press conference. Terry Rooney, the new assistant who has been with Mainieri at Notre Dame and LSU, was also there, jumped on with Jay and Elijah.
I think you're going to like Rooney. Big coffee and caffeine guy.
I like him already.
Yeah.
He's my dude. He's my dude. As long as he tells me, well, we got to find out what kind of coffee.
Okay, that is important.
There's a certain level.
Yeah, I'd say you're a bit of a coffee snob.
I am. I admit, I'm a snob on very few things in life. Obviously, a wardrobe, I'm not a slob. I'm not a snob on wardrobe because I'll wear anything in my drawer. But coffee is a yes. I'm pretty particular about coffee. So I got to talk to Rooney about that. It's like, dude, what are you drinking? If he tells me something, I'm like, oh, okay. He'll go like this. I love Folgers.
It's like,
Can't talk.
Great value K-Cups.
Man, I still like a little taster's choice. Well, okay. Good talking.
What is the stuff that you mixed in? Is that
Sanka?
That's it.
Sanka.
This stuff is in like hotels, right? You don't want to go to the lobby and get coffee. Here, mix it in with the water from the bathroom tap.
Yes. Tell you, Seattle changed me, man. Once you worked out, they had gourmet coffee like at the convenience stores in Seattle.
Oh, that's what they serve the kids at lunch in the elementary schools.
I'm telling you, you get your lunch, you get that Salisbury steak that when you poke it, it goes, meh, but you got really good coffee.
There you go.
There you go. Zelda, the lunch lady with the hairnet, talks like this. Come here, kid. Here's your pizza.
Tuesday surprise.
Oh, yeah. What is that? I don't know. Just eat it.
Monday's leftovers mashed up together.
All right, so we'll hear from Rooney and Monty Lee and Ray Tanner, but we're kind of focusing on what Paul Mainieri had to say yesterday. And one of the things, again, we teased it going to the break, is how do you get South Carolina back to being South Carolina again in baseball? Cut 6, Ed Bird, the key to elevating a program. This is Coach Mainieri.
Well, let me say this, first of all. This program is not in the doldrums, okay? I mean, they won 37 games last year. They won 3 games in the SEC tournament. They won a game in the regional. They're close. There's talent on this team. I know there's talent on this team. So, people say, oh, how many years is going to take? Look, I don't have a 3-year plan. I don't have a 5-year plan. I got a 1-year plan. This team, the kids that are on this team that only have 1 more year of eligibility, they don't care about 2 years from now or 3 years from now. We're going to go out there and do the very best that we can this coming year. And if we do a little bit more to supplement the team that we have coming back through recruiting and transfer portal and so forth, I don't see why we can't compete for everything right out of the gate. I didn't come here to lose. I didn't come here to be mediocre. In my opinion, Carolina baseball represents excellence. Ray Tanner, listen, Bobby Richardson and June Raines and Ray Tanner, all the great coaches of the past, they didn't work so hard to build a mediocre team. They're not happy with mediocrity, and nor will I. Look, this is my last go-around. I'm not working anywhere after here, okay? This is it. So I think we need to win now. I think we should go for it. I don't know if it's going to happen. It's a tough league. I don't know if you know that, but it's a tough league, okay? And we're going to go out there and we're going to compete our what's off every day. And if we get a few breaks and we make it happen. But I think the attitude of the players is going to dictate everything. If they're disciplined, if they care about the little things, it starts with how they conduct themselves. It starts with how they keep the locker room. It's how they respect their facility. It's how they interact with the public. It's all those kinds of things that if they're totally dedicated to a cause, and we have the discipline, and maybe we teach them how to handle the pressure situations a little bit better, okay? Make a big pitch, get a big hit, make a big play, run the bases, take pride in the base running. It's a cumulative thing that doesn't just happen overnight. You got to do it every day. You got to be a champion every day if you really want to hold up the big trophy at the end. And those were characteristics of Ray's teams when they were really winning big. I don't see any reason why we can't just restore that glory. And again, if we recruit the right players, coach them the right way, be dedicated to them, and they're dedicated to the team. I don't see any reason why we should put limits on what we accomplish.
It's a great answer, man. Really is.
I don't think there's anything more important that he said yesterday than that quote right there. Specifically, they didn't build this program to be mediocre. Let's go back to over a week ago now. One of the last things we heard from Coach Kingston, he was asked the question, hey, got bounced in the regional after going to a super last year, didn't make Omaha yet again. Do you think this was a successful season? He says, yeah, I think it was a successful season. That was an unacceptable answer from the fan base and was the final straw for a lot of people. Obviously, ends up getting fired less than 24 hours later. So to go from that to hearing somebody say, I realize these people have dealt with mediocrity for the past 12 years. That's unacceptable. We're going to get this team back to a championship level. I don't think you could have said anything more perfect.
And that's what you want to hear as a Gamecock fan is, this is a great program. We're going to get back to being a great program again. And look, the other part of it in what he said I thought was interesting. Baseball is a game of little things. Sports, really, is playing at a high level. We're such a highlight-driven society, right?
Sure.
I mean, we watch SportsCenter, and you watch SportsCenter highlights. You think a certain dude is really good because you see him on SportsCenter.
Of course.
No, like Anthony Richardson is a great idea. He is a SportsCenter-driven athlete in today's world.
Yep.
You watch Anthony Richardson on SportsCenter, you go, oh, my God, this guy's great. He's wonderful. Go watch a four-quarter game of Anthony Richardson.
Well, let's see those other 56 plays.
Yeah, you don't see the lowlights. There's no thing called lowlights on SportsCenter. They do the top 10 not plays, but that's all goofs. But if you watch 4 quarters of football, 9 innings of baseball, 2 halves of basketball, 3 periods of hockey, 2 halves of soccer, wherever you want to go, whatever your vibe is, the championship teams do the little things well. And that's the difference. And what we saw, this isn't picking on Mark or Chad or anyone, but one of the things you haven't seen here is doing the little things consistently well day in and day out. Defensively, we saw a mess, and they rose above the mess and won 3 games. But what if think about this? What if you did the little things right at the SEC tournament?
Then you might walk out of there with the trophy.
Or at least played for the championship.
Sure.
It's little things. And we didn't see the little things consistently done on a high level. And that's just the thing. And with Mainieri bringing it up, he's so right. The little things day in and day out matter. Like in any profession, if someone's doing the fundamental foundation things right day after day after day, that's step 1 to success. And that's what he's talking about here. It's not pretty. It's not going to be on ESPN SportsCenter, but you're building to when you are going to be on SportsCenter, because when you're dogpiling.
Yeah.
And that's what he's talking about.
And again, this isn't a program that you're having to tear down and build from the ground up. You've got a good foundation here. It's just about taking that to the next level. You've got good caliber talent that it seems like a lot of these guys are going to be sticking around. You're going to have the opportunity to go out and get some high-level guys in the portal as well. That climb back to the top is not that far. You just need the right guy in place to get you there, and Mainieri's that right guy. And
while we seem like, look, this always happens. Whenever you get a new coach, it always feels like it's like everybody's dumping on the last guy. Well, we're bringing this guy in. He's saying these things. Okay, the last guy's team didn't do this, and this guy this. And it's just human nature in this situation. But Mainieri said it. You just said it. Mark didn't get to Omaha.
Right.
And there was a couple years that were, ooh. But Mark also got to 2 supers. He did get to the NCAAs. This is not Missouri.
No, it's not. And look, if he was at Missouri and did those things, they might build him a statue.
I was going to say, it would be Mark Kingston Field.
Exactly. But when you come to a place that has a high level of expectations and you don't meet those expectations, after a period of time, they move on from you and go out and get somebody like a Paul Mainieri that's going to hopefully get the team back to where they're expected to be.
Yeah, Mainieri is just like this. He's going to sit here, and he kind of just said it. I know what's good here. I see what's good here. I'm going to continue to evaluate what has happened here, what happened here last year, so we can move forward. And there's going to be this is good, this is good, this is good. All right, we got to do this better and this better. Or instead of doing it like this, I do it like this.
Yeah.
And these are the things. And again, these players, they're going to buy in automatically because, again, this guy's got the hardware to back up what he wants to do. Because you know what he does has been successful.
You're not having to come in here and reinvent the wheel. You just need to clean up the spokes a little bit.
Yeah, they're a little rust, a little dirty, a little
Yeah,
rusty. He's got to put a
exactly.
little something on there.
Exactly. Give him a little bit of shine.
Absolutely. We're going to continue with Paul Mainieri and his conversation, his thoughts about. Let's get to this real quick, Ed Bird. Let's go to cut 10. The biggest hurdles ahead here at South Carolina. Cut 10.
Well, I think the league is getting tougher every year. There's a lot of great teams out there. And, let me tell you something. One year I went as a coach, our team went at LSU, our team went 13-17. We didn't make the SEC tournament. There was only 8 teams that went that year. I think that was 2011, okay? 2 years later, we went 17-13. We were a national seed, 4-game difference. 36-21 year to 40-16 the next. 4-game difference in conference, 4-game difference overall. Went from not making the tournament to national seed. So the difference is razor thin. You know, you win a few one-run games and you're having a good year. That's the key. You got to win the close ones. And the only way to win the close ones is with clutch hitting, poise on the mound and on defense late in the game, and a belief that you're going to finish the game off. And that's one of the things that, quite frankly, we've been proud about in our career, is we've won a lot of close games, and I think it'll make the difference in the season.
Real quick, a lot of people talk about, again, analytics. Some of these things are overblown and whatever. And if you look at numbers, but I'm sorry, there's a difference in sitting on a field in a 3-2 game than there is in a 10-1 game. And people can tell me that I'm wrong. No, if you ever played a sport at any level, close game late, some guys thrive and some guys pucker up, so to speak.
That's right.
It just happens. All right, we'll come back. Paul Mainieri talking about analytics and also our Firehouse Subtext of the Hour right here on the Halftime Show. Terry Ford, Ed Bird, Tyler Head on the game. We will get to our Firehouse subtext of the hour in just a second, 803-404-6100. Today, 3 to 6, Jay and Elijah doing the post-game show from Angry Fish Brewing in Lexington. Fabrister Lane, again, one of the greatest slogans ever. We drink as much as we can and we sell the rest. That's at Angry Fish, 3 to 6. They're celebrating, I believe, their 5th anniversary. So, Angry Fish in Lexington, Jay and Elijah post-game show. Haley will be out there, too, making sure everything works. We got Beth and Ted from sales, so it's going to be a crew. So, come on out and have some fun and sample some flights of really good craft beer at Angry Fish. That's today, 3 to 6. Also, Angry Fish is part of our craft beer passport. You go to 1075thegame.com. You click on Sweet Deals, get the craft beer passport. $360 worth of craft beer for $79. Very simple, very easy. That's today. Post-game show with Jay and Elijah at Angry Fish in Lexington at 106 Fabrister Lane. And I think I'm saying that right. I don't know. All right. Firehouse subtext the hour, 803-404-6100. What do you got, man?
Yeah, Jeff weighs in and says, Terry, I wish I could get my hands on some of the old military coffee they were still using in the 80s and 90s that were packaged during Vietnam. What can you tell us about that?
I don't want to know. But, yeah, I had friends in the military who would tell me about that stuff.
Well, because like it would be in like the MREs and like you just mix in like a bottle of water or whatever,
or
and there's your
something like
coffee,
that.
but certainly not piping hot by any means. Well, I don't know, because I guess you could use the little heating thing in the MRE to maybe heat it up if that's an option. So I guess you could do that.
I had
But
friends of mine say it was awful.
I would say it probably doesn't taste like a cup from Starbucks.
So it's quite not at Starbucks or like, around here you've got.
Could you imagine you're in the field in the military mixing up your coffee or whatever, go over to your commander who is, got any like French vanilla creamer or, some whipped cream or something that I can put in this thing?
Hey, man, do they have lattes in these things? I'm really jonesing for like a cappuccino.
Is there a barista out here by chance? Don't think they go over too well. You might be drinking mud the next morning.
Oh, absolutely. After you're doing your 700 push-ups. But yeah, I love that text because my friends who were in the military said, Bud, it was the worst. It was the worst crap, but you needed it.
Well, and that's why like with the care packages and stuff, they always have like send us coffee.
Oh yeah, the coffee was brutal.
Coffee, Slim Jims, and potato chips.
Look, you were hitting Slim Jims the other day.
Oh, I always have one in my book bag.
I like me a good old-fashioned original Slim Jim.
There might not be a better snack.
It's funny. You never think about it. And then one day you're walking in the convenience store and you go by it and you go.
You see like the 2-foot-long ones in there?
Ooh, a Slim Jim. I'm going to grab one. And you eat it and you go, why don't I get more of these?
Exactly. Going on a long road trip, the perfect snack told you over.
Slim Jim is fantastic. But yeah, that's a great text about that 80s and 90s military coffee. Oh. I told a story. My dad just made the worst coffee ever. I love my dad to death, Dean Ford, but that Maxwell House, Folgers, it's a smell. My dad burned coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was awful.
My parents still do the coffee grounds thing.
Do they?
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad would, he actually, I think, burned it. And I'm telling you, you could lube a ar with that. So he ate it, he ate it with a fork.
It was just thick.
It was awful.
Had a lot of viscosity to it.
And like even after I, became a coffee snob, and I go to his house and hang out with him and go, hey, boy, you want a cup of coffee? I'm good.
Yep, nope.
Or I'd bring him one because he loves Starbucks. He just hated to admit it.
Sure.
Because it wasn't Folgers. But I'd bring him a Starbucks. And I would do that. And that way, I didn't have to turn down the nasty coffee.
I say you controlled it yourself.
Yes. Go, Dad, I brought you Starbucks. Well, all right, I guess. He'll go like this, I was going to make a Folgers, but all right, I guess. And then he'll drink it. And one day, because I used to always give him like Starbucks or Pete's or something for Christmas or his birthday or Father's Day.
Sure.
And he'd sit there and go, well, I'd buy this stuff because I ain't gonna lie to you, I like it, but it's so bleeping expensive because he drink like 10 cups a day.
Sure.
I'll be through this stuff in 2 days.
Looks at the cup. Who's Tommy? They don't spell your name. It's their thing.
That's right. So, yeah, great text about the rot gut military coffee from the 80s and 90s. Oh, God. Anyway, all right. And so we'll have more Paul Mainieri. Like, we got football coming to 1 o'clock hour. We're going to mix football, and some more Paul Mainieri from the presser. Also, Paul was on with Jay and Elijah. We got an exclusive on the postgame show yesterday with the new baseball coach.
Before he even took the podium.
Yeah, he jumped in with our guys before. I want to thank everybody at South Carolina. Seriously, Ray Tanner, and Steve Fink and Kent and Diana, everybody over there that sports media relations, and of course AD Charles Bloom. They invited us and they set us up and they made sure we were good to go, and just thanked all the folks over there who. They said to us, honestly, we just wanted to, our goal was getting Coach Mainieri on yesterday, and they said, well, why don't you guys come on over? Okay.
All right.
Sure. We'll be over. We'll bring beer. But yeah, so I just want to thank all the folks in South Carolina for the hospitality for our crew yesterday. We thank you very much. I will come back. Football, and baseball on the halftime show with Terry Ford, Tyler Head, Ed Bird, till 3 on the game. Halftime show. Football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. And obviously, we're gonna balance football and baseball in our little get together today. We'll start football real quick. I was today at 6. South Carolina. Look, there's a lot of welcome. There's one welcome home out there right now.
Yes.
That nobody knows.
Because we had, 6 in the past week?
Could it be Shed?
I can't
6
think,
p.m.
I can't think of a better name for an offensive lineman, by the way, than Shed.
I know.
Maybe House.
House is good.
Brick.
Oh, what's the one? Pork Chop. Pork Chop Womack in the NFL. I forgot about old Pork Chop.
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah, so Shed, I guess, Surratt or Serrat. I've heard it both ways.
Yeah, either one.
4-star, 6 o'clock today is when the announcement's supposed to be made.
Yep.
Now, Colorado is sniffed around him as well. I guess the 0-3 has him crystal balling to South Carolina.
Right, and they're usually pretty accurate.
I mean, because I saw a thing, Colorado, there's a big video about Colorado's chase after him. Also, Florida, Tennessee, Florida State, NC State. Again, a lot of big programs are chasing old Shed, but the crystal ball has him for South Carolina, and I believe at 6 p.m. this evening is when the announcement's going to be made by Shed. He's having a big party, Commitment Day party this evening.
And just earlier on this morning, A.J. Holloway officially announced his commitment to South Carolina, another one of those welcome homes that we are figuring out as the week has gone along. The 25 class is so fascinating because it was so slow developing. I mean, we went into the beginning of this calendar year with one commitment, that being, Lenore Seller's little brother at wide receiver. And then the month of April, we had a nice string of guys come together. But, man, the month of June has really, shifted into another gear with this class and, more official visits and stuff going on throughout this month that will hopefully continue to net more commitments.
And Holloway, 3-star, but a guy looked at with a big ceiling and a big upside. I always like to look at the schools that are chasing these guys besides you. Louisville, North Carolina, Kansas, Auburn, LSU, Texas. More than 15 schools offered Holloway, and he commits to South Carolina. So, again, it's been a slow developing class. It's still a top 20 class right now, or top 25-ish class
Top 25,
right now.
Yep.
So it's not far off where other classes have been. It just hasn't had that wow one yet. We haven't had the 5-star, the big pop.
And again,
that hasn't happened.
Beamer's, kind of got this reputation now of pulling at least one 5-star in these past couple classes, which, let's be honest, I think the rest of the country looks at South Carolina and says they have no business pulling that type of talent. And how Beamer's able to do that routinely from the DMV area is nothing short of amazing. And hopefully they're able to pull one of those off before this class closes down.
And the connections, remember, Pete Limbo had big connections in the DMV as well. Shane has them. They've got guys on the coaching staff who are very familiar and have, they know people in the DMV.
Right.
But we'll see if there's any other, big fish that you can reel in for South Carolina. But right now, a very steady class that's being built for 2025 by the Gamecocks. All right, Paul Mainieri at the presser yesterday. We've played some stuff with Mainieri's media presser, but Paul hung out on the postgame show with Jay and Elijah before the big presser. So we got the exclusive. And here's the explanation from Paul Mainieri about how this hire even happened. Let's go to cut 11, Ed Bird, on how Paul Mainieri ended up being the South Carolina head coach.
And I got a text from Ray, and I'd call you, and I'd like to talk to you about some candidates and just get your opinion of these guys. So when we got into town there, he called me, and we started having a conversation. And listen, Ray Tanner and I go back a long way. We competed against each other for many years. And I just always had the greatest respect for Ray and the South Carolina baseball program. And Ray's career as a coach pretty much paralleled mine. I think we're the same age. And, he was being successful. I think we had some success as well. And we just hit it off, and we really got along great. And I would call him a friend, We didn't talk to each other all the time or anything like that. But when we did, it was like picked up from the day before.
Sure.
So he said, he called me, just wanted to see what I thought about the different candidates, And after I gave him my opinion of the guys and ranked his candidates and so forth, he said, "How you enjoying retirement? How do you feel?" And I said, "Well, I feel great." be honest with you, I'm a little bored. You know, you can only play so much golf. I've gotten really good at carpool pickup, you know, with the grandkids.
Yeah,
okay.
Sure.
So he said, well, what about you for this thing? And it kind of took me back for a second, you know. And I said to him, you know, Ray, there's nobody in the country I would go work for other than you, or to be at Carolina. You know, I mean, I just always thought it was a wonderful place. And, you know, I can't go back to LSU. The job's filled,
right.
You know. So, man, this would be like the one place that I think I would consider. So we started talking about it. It just happened that quickly. And we talked about a lot of things. We probably had a 2-hour conversation that night. And, you know, I went to bed and thought about it. And I told him I'd call him tomorrow and see how I feel about it. And the next afternoon I called him and I said, you know, I think I'd like to do it. And if you really want me to be the guy, I think I'd like to do it. And I think I can do a really good job for you. And I really, a big thing in my mind was, you know, the program is not in bad shape.
Right.
I mean, they won 37 games last year. They won 3 games in the SEC tournament, and they won a regional game. You know, when I took over LSU, it was a much more dormant situation. This is better, okay? And you know, I don't really want to go through a bad year before we build it up. I mean, I think there's a really good foundation here. And I think that the fact that Monty Lee stayed has helped that. But, you know, part of my motivation for doing it is, you know, I want Ray. I don't know how much longer Ray's going to work. You know, he's getting up there in years. And I just really want people to believe that Ray Tanner's a great athletic director and he's gotten this baseball thing right. And that's a big motivation for me to make him look good, because I really care about him. So that's pretty much how it happened.
There you go.
I think it says a lot that, again, Ray Tanner did not call him initially to offer him the job. He was seeking out his thoughts and his opinions on the list of candidates they had up to that point. And I think that speaks volumes to the respect and admiration that Ray Tanner has for him as a coach and what he's accomplished in his career. And again, Ray Tanner in of himself, one of the most accomplished baseball coaches in SEC history. Like, he himself could have just relied on his own thoughts and opinions on the list that he had, but he sought out a second opinion from a guy like Mainieri, and then one thing led to another, and obviously offered him the job, and you know, here we are. But, you know, the resume speaks for itself, but I think the respect that, you know, Tanner has and the ability to know what he's like going head-to-head with him, we'll probably get this in a minute, but Ray Tanner, you know, talks about what it was like battling him on the diamond and, you know, what he saw in him as head coach that I think, you know, makes this an even better hire, that he knows how good of a coach he is up close and personal.
Yeah, I mean, the idea also where, you know, Ray is going through his candidates with Paul Mainieri, and at what point the light bulb went off, how about you, man?
Yeah, why not? Why don't I just ask you about this?
And maybe in the conversation, you know, Ray picked up a vibe, because sometimes you can pick up a vibe off of somebody.
You can. You obviously don't want to be pushy with somebody that, again, has been retired for a couple years and obviously had a couple other job opportunities up to this point. I don't think that's the first thing you say is, hey, you want this job? Like, no. If you feel like it's kind of trending in the right direction, you float it out there like, be something you might be interested in. I don't know. And again, apparently Mainieri slept on it that night and got back to him the next day. And, you know, here we are. But things certainly happen fast. I imagine he was not thinking 2 weeks ago that he'd be doing an introductory press conference as a head coach once again this time.
You know, you're speaking of, we'll bounce on the Ray Tanner real quick, Ed Bird, cut 19, and what you just brought up, what makes Paul Mainieri a great coach. Here's Ray Tanner talking about his new head coach at South Carolina.
He's a game changer. He really is. And, you know, he talked about his players. He talked about players are the reason that you win. It's not the coaches, it's the players. But you have to have a guy steering the ship, too. And when I played against him, and I always thought, you know, arrogantly maybe, I always thought that I was a really good in-game manager. I was always thinking ahead defensively, offensively, depth of the outfield, who was coming up, how my bullpen was, how their bullpen was. I was always that guy that I was strategically playing that game, maybe a couple innings ahead, or certainly, you know, a few batters ahead or pitch. This guy was hard to match wits with. And you know, it was always, anytime I tried to do something, there was a counter. And it seemed like his counter worked more than mine did. So it's just, he has that knack that guys are in the right spot at the right time, make the right plays, make the right decisions, base running, you stop at second, you go to third. And matching wits with him was almost impossible. He's one of the best. Somebody asked him a question about analytics.
Yeah.
Well, he'll use analytics, but watch out for his gut.
Yeah.
Because he's going to try to put people in situations to be successful, and try not to have people in environments and places that they can't thrive. So only the great ones do that, and he's done it. I mean, he's the all-time winningest coach.
Yeah.
And that's the interesting part is Ray Tanner talking about the in-game strategery, so to speak, back and forth, the chess match that we feel like is – if on the major league level has been taken away with analytics.
Sure.
That is not as much, gut, because if you're a manager and you go by your gut in Major League Baseball and go away from the analytics in your analytics department and your analytically driven general manager and you start going gut, you better be right, or guess what? You'll be the ex-manager.
I was going to say, you got the guy on the end of the bench with the calculator that's going to be losing his mind.
Yes, the Rays have an analytics coach. A dude from the Big Bang Theory sits in the dugout next to Kevin Cash. He goes, Kevin?
Your statistical likelihood in this scenario is 46%.
Why do you think Blake Snell gets taken out of a World Series game where he's killing it?
I know. And again, look, are our analytics very important? Yes, they are. And I think Mainieri gave the perfect answer when talking about it.
We're going to play that next segment.
We'll get to that in a second, where it's like you got to find a balance between the two.
Yes, and that's me. I say it all the time because analytic people, they're very thin-skinned and they get upset real easy. Oh, you don't like analytics? No, dude, I love it.
The numbers never lie.
Right, I love analytics.
Sure.
I pay way too much money for these stupid websites.
So, don't we all?
Yeah, so I'm in, man. But I also think there's a balance to it of people play these games, not spreadsheets. And you've got to understand a moment. And you got to understand what's going on in that moment. And a guy that might have a 32.44% chance of success usually right now has got a 72.35% chance, but you know that as a coach or a manager because of flow of game or flow of the week or whatever it is. Some guys want a heater, right?
I was going to say, if your whatever pitcher only gives you 3 to 4 innings, but he's cooking after 4 innings on a given Tuesday or something like that, let him go. Let him keep going.
If you want to go hitter by hitter and get the bullpen ready, fine. But hey, Zeke, get on back out there, dude.
You should never put anybody in a game with a limit or a wall outside of like a pitch count, obviously. Like, all right, we get 4 innings, that's it. Unless you're just having a bullpen day or something like that.
I just believe that coaching in every sport, there is a piece of just that intuitiveness, right?
Sure.
That instinct that, you can't explain it, you just feel it. And a lot of the Gamecock fans will talk about Ray Tanner was like that. So it's interesting to hear Tanner talking about battling Mainieri and that whole chess match of moves and this and that and counters. And we're going to get to the next segment. Mainieri, did Jack ask a question about analytics?
Jack did ask the question.
Veltri asked a question about analytics because that's been a big topic of conversation here because Mark Kingston and his, used analytics a great deal and sometimes to the frustration of folks.
Yep.
So the question was asked to Mainieri, and we're going to get to that answer next. And also we'll circle back. Beamer's football camp's going on, so we'll talk a little bit about that as well. I know Wes and Chris have been out there all week. So we'll get to that here in just a couple minutes. You can listen to us so many ways. We appreciate you if you're listening in Columbia, Florence, Myrtle Beach. You're watching on the Game TV on our YouTube channel, which is at the Game TV Radio. Sponsored by Shepherd's Glass, powered by Integrated Media. Also, you can just download the app, man. You go to iTunes, Google Play, whatever. Download the 107.5 The Game app. Listen anywhere you got cell. We're everywhere. We stalk you no matter where you go. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, Ed Bird, right here on the Game. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head, Ed Bird. Now, I'll say this really quick. So our buddies, Jeff Haley and our pal Adam Vance from Sound and Images are both running around doing good work and good deeds in the Appalachia area right now.
Right.
Helping, I guess, like food banks or helping help out with folks who need food and stuff like that. So, and they're listening right now on their phones. We're talking about, listen to the game on the app.
Like I said, you can take us with you literally wherever you go.
And here's the example. Appalachia, the mountains of West Virginia, Jeff Haley, Adam Vance, listening right now.
That's right.
Doing good work.
As long as you got a cell signal.
There you go. You're in. And I know the first thought of everybody's mind is they have cell phones in West Virginia. Well, they do there.
Well, they're the only two people with cell phones in West Virginia.
And that's all.
They don't work in the coal mines. Jeff,
Adam, thumbs up. Doing the good work this week. All right. Football in the 1 o'clock hour, mixing in baseball here on the game. Real quick, Shane Beamer, they're rolling camp. Wes and Chris have been out there. One name to put in the back of your head, and again, who knows where it goes. Samari Matthews, a North Carolina high school kid, 4-star corner in the 2026 class. Chris and Wes just talk about what kind of an athlete he is, twitchy, speedy. He's a guy that's, not offers, but South Carolina's on him, North Carolina, Penn State, Tennessee, West Virginia. And look, coming to the camp doesn't mean you're coming to South Carolina, but you get to recruit the heck out of this kid while he's here.
You do.
And we'll see where it goes, but that's a name to keep in the back of your mind for future reference.
Yeah, and I know the kind of more of the skill position guys were out there yesterday. Today is a little bit more of the guys in the trenches, offensive line and defensive line. And again, a lot of different names to keep an eye on. And it's kind of funny, we're already looking ahead to 26 and 27 in those classes when 25 is still not even wrapped up yet. But obviously they do a great job over on Gamecock Central of keeping you updated on all those kind of things and the names to keep an eye on. And again, hopefully these classes continue to come together well.
All right, so we've been spinning through the SEC TV schedule, just looking for the juicy games. We went through week 1 and 2, and now we're at week 3. And one of the games in the early window of week 3 is LSU and South Carolina, the noon window.
Yep.
Look, on paper, LSU should be better, even though there are question marks. I mean, quarterback, we don't know what Nussmeier is going to be. We think the little bit we've seen, it looks like he could be good, especially in this offense.
Sure. They've
got to replace 2 first-round pick wide receivers, obviously a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. Your defense was a sieve, and I'm being kind. So there are things you need to fix. And again, early season, look, Brian Kelly's an upper-level head coach. But early season, maybe LSU isn't quite got it together yet. They're still working through some things. And they're playing at Williams-Brice. You never know, man. That's all I'm saying. You never know.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we're going to learn a lot about South Carolina week number 2 in that road trip up there to Kentucky and how we come away from that game. I think it's really going to set the tone for how we should feel about LSU coming in. And LSU has Notre Dame in week number 1, so they'll have a high-caliber opponent, they'll have faced already to give us a good gauge of where, not Notre Dame, Southern Cal in week number 1. That'll give us a good gauge on how good that team is this year.
Yeah, I mean, and South Carolina's got some things by week 3. They're trying to figure out new quarterback. Hopefully the offensive line is solid. You got new wide receivers, new running back. Your offense has a lot of new pieces as well.
Yep.
So this is, again, early season game. Whoever's got it together the best, I guess is what you're looking at. But that'll be an interesting game in the noon window. 3:30, every week is Florida.
It feels that way.
A&M will go to the Swamp to take on the Gators. We talked about this yesterday when we did our little which hot seat coach will get canned first, Uncle Sam or Sunbelt Billy. I mean, A&M, a lot of talent still. Look, a lot of it transferred out, but there's still a ton of good players in College Station. And we'll see what Florida's got, man.
Do you remember when we talked about, when Georgia came in here in baseball and swept South Carolina, and there was that kind of resentment of, man, that's a first-year head coach on the other side that came in and surpassed you as a program. I feel like we look at that game between Texas A&M and Florida where Elko's taking over an A&M program that's not in the dumps by any means, but not necessarily on the top end of the SEC either. So if they go in there and they beat Florida, in the Swamp, which, again, Florida plays a lot better in the Swamp than they have in the Napier area, I think you look at that and say, well, there's a first-year head coach at Texas A&M that has already surpassed what this Florida program is right now. And, is that going to get Billy Napier fired? Not necessarily, but I think that turns up the heat quite a bit.
It does, just piles
a little bit more.
On, bud.
A little bit more before
That's
they
right.
get to that second bye week and say, see ya.
That's right. It's just another branch on the campfire that could be lit, the inferno that is going to happen at some point, probably in Gainesville. The big game, Alabama at Wisconsin. Now, you think, that's not a big game. On paper, you don't feel like it, but guess who's not the head coach at Alabama?
Nick Saban.
Right. So we really don't look. Kalen DeBoer's won everywhere. We get it. But it is going to be his first year in Tuscaloosa. Wisconsin, second year of a new regime at Wisconsin. We'll see where that's at with Luke Fickell and Phil Longo and that crew.
Sure.
The game is in Madison.
Yep.
You got the fifth quarter. You got jump around. So that game might be tighter than we think, but Wisconsin typically loses these games.
They do. I think we talked about this yesterday. Wisconsin's always that team that's just on the outside looking in when it comes to being in that top tier of the Big Ten. And look, I think they're probably going to be somewhere around a 9-win team like they are once again this season. But yeah, I would give the nod to Alabama, unless in those first 2 weeks of the season we just see, Wisconsin go on some kind of tear and there's some kind of amazing player that we didn't see coming or something like that. But I could see that being a competitive game, but I'd give the nod to Alabama.
And the other one in the night window is Georgia, Kentucky. Sorry, no offense. That would be a fun game for a quarter.
Sure.
Georgia will woodshed Kentucky. I don't care if the game's in Kentucky. I don't care. I don't care if they play that game on Mars. Georgia whoops Kentucky.
Well, I mean, two of the biggest key transfers for Kentucky are players that seemingly were going to be backups for Georgia this year, Brock Vandegrift and Jamon Duvis-Johnson at linebacker. So, yeah, I mean, Kentucky, could be better this year. But, again, I think Georgia's probably going to run roughshod through a lot of the SEC this year.
All right, real quick, let's get this cut, and we'll talk about it on the other side, Ed Bird. Got back to Paul Mainieri and baseball, talking about gut feeling versus analytics, a huge conversation piece in this area. Let's get to that right now, Ed.
Very good question. And the answer to that is yes. I know it was an or question, but I'm saying yes. Both, okay? The analytics can be very valuable. Monty took me for a tour of the hitting facility today and showed me all the cameras and the computers and all the stuff that we can do analytics. Why would you not take advantage of it? When I talked to Terry about his evolving as a pitching coach, he explained to me how important some of the analytics are to him and how he's going to work with the pitchers. So yeah, it's crazy to not use what technology can give you and the advances that we have in the game. But I'm not going to totally depend on that. I'm going to trust these two little white things in the front of my face. I'm going to see what I see, and I'm going to believe what I see. And I've been a pretty good judge of talent. That allowed me to last for 39 years without somebody kicking me to the curb. I've always said this: the players you choose to hitch your wagon to are going to determine whether or not you're a good coach. See, I have never, in 39 years as a head coach, pitched one ball or hit one pitch or run the bases or caught it. It's all about the players. They're the ones that get it done or don't get it done. So I have to make the judgment on who are the players that we can really trust, especially in pressure situations. So a lot of the analytics tell you, oh, RBIs are an important stat. To me, it's the most important stat. It doesn't do any good to get on base if we don't get those base runners around to home plate. The whole idea is to score runs, and the run differential is what matters. Look, does the spin rate help a pitcher be more successful? Absolutely. Okay, but the idea is to get the hitter out and to limit the amount of runs that we give up. So yeah, it's going to be a combination, and I'm not going to be a dinosaur and say, oh, no, I don't care about all that other stuff, because it'd be silly for me to do that. And the players have grown up with that. They've started at ages 10 and 11, learning about all those kinds of things. We're not going to just completely divorce ourselves from it. But if it came down to the bottom line of, do you play a person with good exit velocity or a guy that comes through in the clutch with a runner on third base and one out, I'm going to play the guy that gets the runner in. So it's going to be a combination of both.
Very interesting answer from Paul Mainieri, and we're going to talk about it on the other side. Analytics and gut, using both and mixing them together. We're going to get into that next. Don't forget today, 3 to 6, Jay and Elijah broadcasting live. Angry Fish, 106 Fabrister Lane in Lexington. Go hang out, sample some flights, have a good time. Also grab a craft beer passport for $79. All that come today, 3 to 6 on the postgame show at Angry Fish. We'll come back, talk about Paul Mainieri's comments on analytics and we'll continue on with football here in the 1 o'clock hour on the game. What we're talking about is football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors, and more from yesterday. Paul Mainieri's introductory presser. Also, Ray Tanner was there, Terry Rooney, Monty Lee. We're going to get to as many voices as we can from yesterday between now and 3 o'clock. Of course, Coach Mainieri, also Coach Tanner, Terry Rooney on the postgame show with Jay and Elijah. Monty Lee had a presser as well during yesterday's festivities. We're going to get to that. Right now, with what Paul Mainieri just said, we played about the analytics versus gut, where Coach Mainieri basically said, I'm going to mix the two.
Yeah.
And I just think that's the right way to go in this. Like Moneyball, the movie Moneyball.
Mm-hmm.
We've all, well, no, we've all, but a lot of folks have seen Moneyball. And, you know, in the movie, and again, movies are movies, but there was that old school scouting community that didn't want to hear no math.
Mm-hmm.
They just wanted to use their eyeballs. He looks like a ball player. Remember, that's the line from Moneyball.
Right.
To the analytics folks who are using, you know, basic percentages and numbers to tell you the percentage of success of a certain whatever it is in sports. That's really, to me, analytics is just taking old school scouting and putting numbers and video behind it.
Right.
And if you look at it that way, instead of, well, if you love analytics, you hate scouting. If you love scouting, you hate analytics. If you look at it like, okay, a scout says, for an example, okay, you know what? Yeah, you know, something's off with your delivery because all of a sudden you're riding the fastball off the plate and your command isn't what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll say, for an example, I think you're I think your stride is too long and it's throwing your weight shift off and it's throwing everything to where you're not throwing strikes. That's the scout's opinion with an eyeball.
Sure.
Okay, now the analytic guy can take the video and go, hey, Bub, what he just said, watch.
Right.
And then you go like this. I guess you're right. It's just the backup of what's scouting eyes. You know, sometimes scouting eyes see something that doesn't jive with maybe analytics.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes there's things we've thought of in sports, Tyler, that analytics have said, guess what? That's not right. And that makes the scouting community mad too, because they're like, you're taking a dump on all these things that we've held true and dear.
No, there should always be a balance between the two, and I think Mainieri made a good point. He'd be dumb to ignore analytics because, again, it has become a big part of the game, but it shouldn't always be the end-all, be-all when you're making decisions, and that goes back to, you know, where people were frustrated with Kingston, especially for some of the, you know, late decisions that he made, you know, towards the end of this past season, where it said, well, why'd you do this? Why'd you keep this pitcher in? Why'd you keep this guy in at this spot or whatever it may be? Well, the analytics told us this, but the feel and the flow and the eye test weren't matching what the analytics were saying. So sometimes you have to go against what the numbers say and go with your natural feel, your gut feel of the game. And again, that's where it feels like Paul Mainieri, who again has been around for 4 decades, he's been coaching baseball at the high level since the 80s. So he has that old school gut feel mentality, the eye test and all that kind of stuff, where I feel like it is going to be a good balance of those two things that depending on the situation, depending on what the numbers say, we'll decide which way you're going to go.
I think that you have to mix both. Because, again, there's so many things that this analytic technological world brings you, but you also can't excuse flow of game and feel and the moment. Because things sometimes you got to go with that because of, we talked about earlier, yeah, some guy typically might not be that good in this situation, but this guy's been balling lately, right?
Yeah.
So you know what you're going to do? Leave him in and let him do what he's been doing.
Sure.
Confidence. The other thing the analytics can't tell you, as much as I like them, is the heartbeat of a human being, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like anything, the more you do something successfully, the more you're going to feel confident you can do it. Does that mean you're going to do it successfully every time? Of course not. But like, you know, Paul Mainieri talks about how much he values RBIs. And the analytic community does not value RBIs at all.
Mm-hmm.
They look at it like, you know, good hitters get hits. Whether there's people on base or not, good hitters get hits. If you run simulations for 1 million times, typically good hitters who are good hitters are going to get hits whether people are on base or not.
Right.
I understand that to a point when you're running numbers. You ever bat with runners on base late in the game?
Yes.
Feel different than batting in the first inning when nobody on base and it's nothing?
1,000%.
I just really, I think that some people are just better when it's tense.
Yep.
Some people thrive and some people don't.
Well, and again, this isn't, Mainieri trying to pile on Coach Kingston or inadvertently take a shot at him. But when you look at what South Carolina struggled at this year, driving guys in when they were on base, that's the perfect answer that the fan base wants to hear is, yeah, I want a guy that's concerned about RBIs.
And you would pick the RBI guy over the guy with the who's got the barrel rate or the exit velocity.
Sure.
And here, the other part of that is this. With the whole thing about RBI, it goes back to, and I don't know this because I wasn't over watching everything that happened during this past regime, but and this is about baseball in general in a lot of ways to me. Look, I get all of it. I get the exit velocity. I get swing paths. I get all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I also believe that situational hitting matters. And I believe when there's a runner on third, less than 2 outs, and you're down by a run, you got to change your approach, especially if you all of a sudden get 2 strikes.
Right.
Can you get that runner in if you swing and miss for strike 3? No. Unless the ball goes past the catcher and rolls back to the backstop. Right. That's your plan. Is it your plan B?
That shouldn't be.
No. I just think that you need to be able to have a situational plan of hitting to where you get in that box and it's 2-2 and you got a runner on third and less than 2 outs and you're down by a run in the 7th inning. You got to say, okay, I have got to make good contact now. That's what I need to do. I have to have a good approach. Don't try to come up here and hit a ball 500 feet. I need a good approach to make good, solid contact.
And that's kind of been the issue with South Carolina's offense for these past couple of years. It seems like it's been feast or famine. Either you're hitting a home run or you're striking out at times. You got to find that balance in the middle ground, the small ball thing, which is something else that he talked about that, again, something that people got frustrated with Kingston at the end of his tenure, that they weren't, bunting, moving runners around, just playing the small little nuances of the game that a team like Kentucky has rode all the way to the College World Series now.
And college baseball is different from Major League Baseball, obviously, duh. Terry obvious. But, you put you drop bunts. You break up infields with some hit and runs. You put the ball in play. You know what teams do sometimes?
Make mistakes.
They make mistakes.
As we've seen.
These aren't major leaguers.
Yeah.
And, I remember when a kid played Little League, you have a coach, hit the ball. Nothing can happen if you're walking the dugout after strike 3.
Yeah.
We can't score runs. And so there's a balance in here. Yes, I love the 9 quadrants of home plate, and here are your hot quadrants, and here are your cold quadrants, and hunt a pitch right here, and this is what you're looking for. And if you hunt that pitch, and you get the pitch you're better at, go after it. I'm all about that.
Sure.
But here's what happens. Again, 7th inning, 1 out, runner on third, you're down by a run, 2 strikes on you. I'm not saying you're swinging a ball rolling in the dirt. But what I'm saying is if you get a pitch you can handle, to heck with the quadrant. Yeah. Make good, solid contact and get a run in, and don't take a called third strike because it wasn't in your hot spot.
Sometimes, like we saw with Talmadge Lecroy in the SEC tournament, sometimes the guy on the hot corner is struggling. He's not been able to field a ball cleanly all day. Hit it at him.
Because if you hit the ball and he's going to field it the way it's going, because we talk about confidence, Talmadge Lecroy had the opposite. Yeah.
Now, the statistics of the batter may say he's not had a single hit towards that side of the field the entire season. I feel pretty good about his chances this time.
I just feel flow of game situation, things that are, because that's part of this. It just can't be analytics.
That's why managers get paid a lot of money. That's why Paul Mainieri is getting $1.3 million come here. You have to manage all that in split-second decisions, which is why it is not easy. But again, finding that balance between analytics and gut feel is what's going to hopefully make this team successful, and I think Paul Mainieri is the right guy to do that.
Yeah, the resume's pretty good, right?
Pretty darn good.
It's okay. Right.
I mean, he is the winningest active coach in baseball right now.
All right, Big 12's doing something really interesting. We get back to football in the 1 o'clock hour here on the game. The Big 12 is exploring selling the naming rights. Oh, not of the fields.
No.
Not of the uniforms.
No.
What are they selling the naming rights of, Tyler?
The whole dang conference.
They'll take the word big off of it.
Or actually, they might not. They might leave.
Really?
Which is we can dive into this more. If you're going to do it, change the whole name. Don't keep part of it. But why would you keep the 12? There's not 12 teams in the conference anymore.
No.
Either commit to 16 or get rid of it.
Yeah, I mean, but you know what, though? The Big 16 has a really bad ring. There's just no...
I think none of the names make sense anymore, to be honest with you.
the Big 10's not 10.
We got ACC teams in California now.
I was going to say, the ACC's now on the Pacific Coast. The SEC, Missouri's not in the Southeast. I mean,
just blow it all up.
We've just... and look, I get this idea because you're looking for anything you can do to make a buck.
Sure.
Because you're going to be paying players. You got this gigantic lawsuit you got to pay back. I get it. I understand. I mean, fine sponsored urinal cakes. But you got to, I get it. But we're going to get back into this on the other side and have our Firehouse subtext the hour at 803-404-6100. It is an interesting topic. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head, Ed Bird here on the game. Time for our Firehouse Sub text of the hour, and then we'll get back to this Big 12 conversation as well. 803-404-6100. What do you got there, man?
So this actually goes back to a conversation Jack and I had earlier about the Big 12 and its naming rights, and I asked the question of who should be the sponsor of the SEC, and overwhelmingly, a lot of people have said Waffle House would be the perfect sponsor for the SEC.
Well, isn't Williams-Brice the closest?
It's practically in the end zone.
You should just put it in the end zone.
You know what? Instead of the midfield sponsor logo, have a Waffle House at midfield.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, somebody walking around, with an all-star special.
How cool would it be to sit there and have this? Is that the one where you get a little taste of everything?
Oh, of course.
That's the one I love.
Totally.
So you sit there, you're knocking off some waffles, having a little eggs, you're looking out the window, and you're watching the game.
Can't think of a better thing.
How much money would that ticket go for?
Oh, God, a lot.
On the 50-yard line.
Yeah.
Eating in the Waffle House.
I'd buy it.
God, yeah. Fantastic. I like Waffle House. I think Waffle House would be perfect.
I've also think Buc-ee's has been thrown out there. You've gotten to experience Buc-ee's recently.
Buc-ee's is cool, man. I love me some Buc-ee's. I bought all my clothes there now.
Yeah, there you go. Walmart.
Yeah.
That's pretty accurate.
Barbecue.
And it's good barbecue at that.
I'm telling you, man, that brisket. Heath Klein turned me on to the brisket at Buc-ee's, and I'm like, it's good. It is good.
I mean, they chop it out there in front of you.
Sure.
It's not something that comes processed, in a can.
They take you out to the smoker.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, Buc-ee's is awesome. Walmart, I mean, yeah. I mean, Walmart, yeah, that's not bad. I'm thinking what else is just purely Southeast that you would think, or you associate Southeast.
I would think, Coca-Cola, obviously, huge brand, but I don't know if Dr. Pepper would be cool with that.
I mean, it is the official sponsor of Fansville.
That's true, and I mean they sponsor half the conference championship games now.
Yes.
So
yeah.
But going back to what we were talking about, the Big 12, if you're going to commit to doing this, just call it the All-State Conference. Don't call it the Big All-State. Don't call it the All-State 12. Just give them the whole name.
If that's where you're going to go, right? And get rid of 12.
Because the 12 has no meaning.
No, it doesn't. You're the All-State 16, or just be the All-State Conference, whatever you want to be.
Or if you want to retain the integrity of your name, and I don't know if this changes the price point or not, why can't you be the Big 12 conference presented by All-State?
Yeah, I was going to say, just
that may net you less money. I don't know.
Right.
But and you know what? I like Brett Yormark as a commissioner, very outside the box thinker, and this is a very outside the box thing. And when we're talking about trying to close that revenue gap between them and the SEC, this is a good idea until the SEC and the Big 10 do the same thing and continue to gap you more and more.
Yeah, and that's why if you're the Big 12, you want to get ahead of them and do it before the SEC and the Big 10 do it.
Sure.
And look, and the whole thing about tradition, because the traditionalists will hate this. I understand.
Totally. 1,000%.
But they want it to be the Big 8 again.
Of course.
Like it used to
then
be.
we'll go Southwest Conference.
Right. And I guess so if you can't, what is left of tradition?
Not much.
Very few traditional things. And this is the part of college football that I get it, man. It's the second highest rated sport behind the NFL, and there's a ton of money, and people love their schools and all that stuff. But piece by piece, one of the things about college football that makes it college football is tradition.
Yes.
And you've got to at some point understand there's a certain level of tradition you can't screw with.
Right.
And I don't know if we're getting near that border yet or not, but you can't get mad over the name of a conference change to make money when, like we just said, you got two schools in the Bay Area who are now in the Atlantic Coast Conference.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, you can't have this thing both ways and try to even talk about tradition anymore.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, how much does the name of the conference matter from a historical standpoint? Sure, when you're talking about records and stuff like that, but to say that the Southeastern Conference is Southeastern with Missouri and Oklahoma and Texas, it's not. To say that the Big Ten has 18 schools now. What is the significance of the 10?
There's no significance of the 10.
Yeah.
And it's a conference that goes from West Coast to East Coast now.
Yeah, exactly.
So you might as well change the name to Transatlantic or whatever the heck it is.
Maybe.
Just
call yourself the Big Conference.
Yeah, you might as well, right? Sponsored by somebody.
Yeah, why not?
I mean, that's where we're at. And if you're going to just sell your conference name because you want to make a ton of money, everything else is about money.
Why not?
Why stop now?
Go for it.
Go get them.
Go for
and
it.
I want to be entertained because look at the stadium names. How stupid most of these things are.
Right.
Every so many years you're going to change it because, like, let's say a lot of those stadium names, all those businesses went bankrupt.
Yeah, usually.
So then you got to change the name again. So this could be a lot of fun because I mean you love your bowl game sponsor
totally.
names.
I love the weirder the better.
And I might end
Give
up
it to
being
me.
conferences.
It might.
The Jimmy Kimmel Conference.
Yes, please give me that.
All right, we'll get back in here. What's trending at 2? Obviously, we'll steer back. Here's some Ray Tanner on the postgame show with Jay and Elijah yesterday. Also, some Monty Lee and Terry Rooney, too, on the game. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head, Ed Bird as we roll till 2. Don't forget 3 o'clock from Angry Fish. Fabrister Lane, 106 Fabrister Lane in Lexington, the postgame show with Jay and Elijah. Part of our craft beer passport roadshow tour, Angry Fish. So stop on out, say hey, sample some craft beers, man. They got some good stuff. So
why not?
that is today, 3 to 6. You live in Lexington.
I do.
Why don't you stop in?
Might have to do that.
Yeah, go on over there.
Apparently, they sell all the beer that they can and just drink the rest. So if I can help them out
And drinking
with that,
the rest?
and drinking the rest, I will happily do that.
All right, so that's today from 3 to 6. All right, what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Ed Burr, we're going to jump back into the sound, my friend. All right, Ray Tanner was on with Jay and Elijah on the postgame show. We already heard him talk about what makes Coach Mainieri so good. Now let's hear Coach Tanner, cut 20, Ed, discussing the advantage of having an experienced crew of assistants.
Well, I think it makes a lot of difference. I mean, what do you bring? And it's not only what you can bring on practice days and days in the fall when you're trying to develop players, but when you're recruiting players and they look at the resume and been there, done that, or or the young coaches that really don't have that much experience or do. I know there was a stretch in Monty Lee's career. I believe it was the last 2 years at the College of Charleston, then he goes to Clemson. The first 3 years at Clemson, a 5-year stint in a row, right? He was the second highest most wins of any coach in NCAA baseball. Many people miss that. He was successful, and then Terry Rooney is a tireless recruiter. Coach Mainieri said that he comes to work at like 6 a.m. I'm gonna have to have a conversation with him about that. He can't be showing up everybody and show up at 6 a.m. But it's a great staff. It's a great staff that can recruit and knows how to recruit. They're tireless, and they got a great leader. That trusts them, will believe in them, and they'll be a part of it. Coach Mainieri is not a guy that I got this. I'll tell you how it's done, and he engages and involves his staff. He always have. I've known him for a while, and he will listen, and he will try to understand situations. Ultimately, he makes a decision, but he's not a guy that I don't need to talk to you. I know what I'm doing. He's going to listen.
Well, that's the thing we talked about earlier, and Mainieri said it about the NIL stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the transfer portal and all these things that are, have become so prevalent in the last 3 years since, Coach Mainieri last was sitting in the dugout at LSU. He's going to lean on these guys because these guys all know the lay of the land and know what's up when it comes to the new world of college athletics.
And I know that sounds like a really easy thing, but there are some, head coaches out there that have the mentality that they know better than everybody else that aren't going to be willing to lean on their assistants that much. So I do think it's really good that, Coach Mainieri is not afraid to do that. And again, I don't think it's going to take him long to get up to speed on these kind of things. It's not like he's been out of coaching since the 90s or something like that. Right. I feel like he'll get used to it pretty quickly, and then he can, take a little bit more of the responsibility on that. And, obviously he's going to be kind of the face of the baseball program when it comes to trying to leverage the NIL dollars and stuff like that with the current model. But, he's got good assistants that have been around the game and understand that stuff that'll hopefully get him up to speed pretty quickly.
All right, and speaking of the assistants, Coach Tanner also discussed, John Hendry we're hearing about a lot, right? Mm-hmm. The young guy, he's at Virginia. He's on Coach O'Connor's staff with the Cavaliers, who, by the way, guess where they're at?
I believe they're actually starting right now in Omaha.
Yeah, once again in the College World Series.
Yep.
Here's Coach Tanner talking about John Hendry, the young guy on this coaching staff. That will be cut 21, Ed Bird.
So I've called John, I think, 3 times since Coach Mainieri made the decision to come here, and he told me he was going to bring John with him. So I reached out to John on 3 different occasions to have conversations. He's in Omaha right now because he's working for the University of Virginia. They play the Tar Heels tomorrow. But he's the son of Jim Hendry. Now, I knew who Jim Hendry was. I mean, he's sort of a legend in Major League Baseball. Right. He was a head coach at Creighton when they went to the College World Series. I don't think they've been back since.
Brian O'Connor on that team?
Brian O'Connor. He's by the statue.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, he's
so
on the statue.
It's just a great story. But Jim, Jim is just a legend, and that's what John has known his entire life. He pitched in Indianapolis, a Division II school. And I asked Paul, I said, so was he not maybe a high caliber player? He said, no, he wasn't. He wasn't. So he pitched at the Division II school. But he was a tremendous student of the game, as you would expect. How fortunate and could he be? He's hanging around the clubhouse with the Cubs and then the Yankees. Growing up, that's pretty good, right?
Right.
You and I would sign up for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm excited to have John in here. He's obviously, as I said, I've talked to him 3 times, bright young guy. And he's anxious to make an impact on this staff as well.
So you've got a young guy like Hendry who kind of gets some of the newer ways, right?
Sure.
And, Monty's around 50, and so Rooney's around 50. They're both around that same age level of late 40s, early 50s, whatever the case. And you get the young guy in Hendry.
Yep.
You got 2 guys who were head coaches in Rooney and Lee. And I just think it's an excellent staff of varied ideas and varied strengths, a couple little age differences, guys with experience on what it's like to be the head coach, good recruiters.
Yep.
Rooney did a really nice job as a pitching coach back in the day at LSU and Notre Dame. It's got a good vibe to it.
It does, and with Rooney kind of taking on that role of being a pitching coach and the recruiting coordinator, the plan is to have Hendry be that assistant pitching coach. Where if Rooney has to be on the road for whatever reason, you can have Hendry step in and kind of step into that main pitching coach role that allows him that flexibility to still be out there on the road and do his recruiting stuff. So I'm excited about this, and again, Joe Hendry out there with Virginia, who's getting rolling in Omaha, right now for their 3rd consecutive trip. So obviously comes from really good background out there with the Cavaliers, and should bring a lot to the table here as a South Carolina assistant.
And we heard Ray Tanner on the postgame show yesterday with Jay and Elijah. Now, Terry Rooney was also sat down with Jay and Elijah on the postgame show over at the Cockaboose where the presser was going. Here, and we're going to go to this cut. Let's get to cut 17, Ed Bird. Here's Coach Rooney talking about getting Paul Mainieri up to speed on today's landscape. Again, cut 17.
Yeah, we're all doing it together. Recruiting it takes everybody to make this thing happen. But I will just say this individually. I have tremendous confidence that I understand the landscape of college baseball right now. I understand how to recruit at this level. Look, there's no off. When you're recruiting at this level, particularly right now, there's no off. Monty and I have as soon as we decided to do this a day and a half ago, it is text messages, phone calls. It is all the time. And I'm at the airport this morning on the way to fly here, and you're dealing with it all the time, whether it's players or scouts and all different variables. So I feel very confident that I've got a great understanding of the transfer portal, NIL, the entire landscape of what it is, and we have everything we need here at Carolina to put ourselves in position to once again be an Omaha national championship type team. I will tell you this is what I will tell you for people listening is this. A lot of what you do now, a lot of this roster is year to year. That's a little bit different than what it was even 2 or 3 years ago. I used to have depth charts in my office for like 6 years. These guys went under rules. You used to be able, there's different rules you could have, and you could commit kids, some maybe when they're a lot younger, and that's not the case anymore. You're not allowed to have contact with them, and I think that helps with dealing with older kids. But now in the stage that we are with the portal, with a lot of different variables, you almost truly are year to year, and you better embrace it because that's where we are in this league.
There you go.
Yep.
That's religion right there, man. It's year to year. And you're trying to keep your own players. You're trying to bring other players in from the portal. Here's the other thing, too, you add in with baseball is you recruit a kid, high school kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Feeling pretty good about that kid, right?
Usually.
Well, let's say he's got a lot of game. You know what else could happen to that kid?
Get drafted.
Get drafted by the majors.
PJ Morlando is very likely to happen here in a couple weeks.
Yeah, Morlando, unless something goes sideways and he falls... the slot money isn't what he wants.
Sure.
I don't think PJ is going to be putting a Gamecock uniform on.
I'm not going to hold my breath on that one,
right.
Unfortunately.
But that's the other thing that goes with all this other craziness.
Sure.
You have craziness in football and basketball, right?
Right.
Now you have this craziness in baseball that also this high school kid can get drafted, by a Major League Baseball team after he's already committed to you.
Right.
It's just another different dynamic to go with all the other crazy dynamics in this whole college athletic landscape. So you got to look at it year to year. Now, in a perfect world, if you can hold like Ethan Petrie, everything points to Ethan Petrie coming back for year 3.
Sounds like it.
That's great and wonderful. Let's hope it happens. But, man, the Ethan Petries, it used to be a lot of them, not as many of them today. You got guys bouncing like you got a Kennedy Jones coming in from somewhere else. You know, we've seen different players transfer in and do good things. You see guys transfer out. I mean, you went up against one, you know, at LSU playing shortstop in Braswell.
Right.
It's the way this is, and I think, you know, Terry Rooney looked at it perfect. To try to think this is more than a year-to-year thing right now, you're fooling yourself.
No, absolutely. And again, that also kind of gives you the optimism of being able to put together that team that you want in year number one that can compete for an Omaha spot because you have the ability to go out there in the transfer portal, get the guys that you want. And again, you have a coach with a very impressive resume that I think is going to appeal to a lot of guys. Like, man, I want to go play for that guy. I want to fill in whatever gaps this team has. And again, over the next couple of days and weeks, we're going to figure out which of these guys on the current roster are going to stay or going to go. You're going to find out what's going to happen with Cole Messina after he gets his MLB, draft evaluation. And then you can really start piecing things together and figuring out just kind of what kind of team you're going to have for 2025.
I mean, it's a mix. It's sort of like the analytic gut feel thing. You're right in the middle.
Yep.
That's what this is now. You're like, you know, you want obviously to bring in your own guys and develop them and have them out of high school or whatever for multiple years. But to push that away, Dabo, and to think the transfer portal can't help you win, that's ridiculous. Of course it can. Baseball. Look at Kentucky. One of the biggest success stories the last couple of years in the SEC. You know why they actually play baseball and people know they win games and they're actually around? They've used the transfer portal.
Right.
A couple of years ago, A&M loaded up in the portal. I mean, we see it all the time now. You hear this in baseball. Yeah, they turned that program around quick because they mined the portal.
Yes.
We hear it a lot now. Or a team, they got cratered by losing guys in the portal. East Carolina, God love old Coach Godwin.
Well, that's become a stepping stone school now.
Yes, I mean that's the reality of this, and you can't look at it like you used to. You've got to it doesn't mean you like it.
No.
But this is the world you now play in, and either you play in the sandbox, or you get up and clean yourself off and go, I'm going home, take a shower, thanks.
Yeah.
You have two choices now. And to understand it, like we just heard Terry Rooney say, this is the way you have to look at it now, and this is the way you have to attack it.
Yeah, and again, if you're going to come in here and you're going to be successful right out of the gate, like you said, his plan is to be, you got to attack this thing full force.
All right, let's get one more in here, Ed Bird, before we roll off to the break. Let's spin over Monty Lee at his presser yesterday. This is a very interesting answer. To cut 24, Ed Bird. Monty Lee talking about being an assistant on a staff where you were in the mix to get the job as the head coach.
And I just said this a little bit earlier. I don't believe I deserve anything. You know, if when everything that happened, unfortunately with Coach Kingston, when it happened, there was a real possibility I may not even have a coaching job. So, look, it's a humbling experience to go through that, and I've been through it a couple times. So I don't deserve anything. You know, the only thing that I try to do is serve the players and serve the coaches that I work for in whatever opportunity that is. I've been a head coach. I've been an assistant coach. Those roles are a little bit different. But I'm going to do everything I can because Paul Mainieri has given me this opportunity to be a part of the staff, to serve him and continue to do what I've been doing with the players, which is to be there for them and try to do everything I can to put them in a position to be successful. That's why I got into coaching. Sometimes the titles and the roles can be a little bit different, but I'm going to adjust to do whatever I can to serve the man that's put me in a position to be here, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm excited about being able to do it.
All right, the Monty Lee thing's interesting. First of all, I think it was really a really good get to keep Monty Lee on the staff.
Sure.
Well, I said this the other day. Look, we can sit here and bat around our opinions on Monty Lee as a head coach, whether you love him, think he got hosed at Clemson, or you think, you know what, he's a good coach, but he's not a guy that's got anybody to Omaha. Wherever you go on Monty Lee,
right,
that's fine. But Monty Lee's assistant coach, that's a thumbs up.
Very good, very solid. Do you think Paul Mainieri understood the flames he fanned when he was talking about Monty Lee and said, yeah, in 5 years I'd like to have the program position where I can just hand it over to him to take over?
We're going to talk about that next. Let's get into that next. Again, Paul Mainieri, 67 years old. He's got a 5-year deal. What happens after that? There was a lot of Monty Lee discussion with that conversation. We'll get to it next. Halftime show. Jerry Ford, Tyler Head, Ed Bird till 3. Then Jay and Elijah from Angry Fish here on the game. What's trending at 2, sponsored by Gamecock Traditions and Traditions Fine Jewelry here on the game. All right, a couple quick notes in the world of sports. Typically, we see what's trending, but right now, really what's trending is Carolina baseball. Ludwig Oberg from Sweden is a 5-under tie with Patrick Cantlay of the United States, U.S. Open second round. For some reason, when I talk Swedish, I always do the Swedish chef from the Muppets.
Yeah, I think that's most people's go-to. Yeah. I'm sure Ludwig would not enjoy that, probably.
So if you looked at Ludwig, by the Oberg is A-B-E-R-G. It's Oberg.
Yeah.
And like, if you looked at him and say, hey, Ludwig, here be.
Yeah. Hey, Ludwig, and love the meatballs, man. I'm sure he gets that a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure. He look at you like, yeah, you think you're the first guy ever to pull this?
Yeah.
Really funny, man. But Oberg, who had some nice moments on tour this year. Oberg sitting at 5-under along Patrick Cantlay.
He showed a lot of promise in the Masters a couple months ago.
Young guy. A lot of people think huge high ceiling and potential. Right now, tied for the lead with Patrick Cantlay at the U.S. Open. Also, Bryson DeChambeau is a shot off the lead. Rory McIlroy is 2 off the lead.
I was going to say, it's a major, so DeChambeau showed up.
You know what's funny? I didn't get to read it because we were so busy knee-deep in Gamecock baseball. There was a post up on ESPN.com about DeChambeau now all of a sudden going from the guy everybody hates to more likable. Remember, he did that thing with the golf ball at the PGA where he threw the golf ball for the kid and some guy walked over. No. Hey, Bob. That's for the kid. And everybody was like, oh, that's really cool. That's really
Sure.
And he has come off a bit not as annoying.
Sure.
When you hear, like, with his comments recently, when he talks to the media, not as arrogant, not as I know more than everybody kind of way.
Right.
And the thing about DeChambeau really quick is I give him props for he's always trying to be innovative. Remember, he was the guy that was talking about analytics, was going with all these different swing ideas and everything in golf. But everybody forgot about that because all of a sudden he said, you know what I really need to do? Get yoked.
I was going to say, they used to call him Bryson DeChambeau Flex.
Yeah. I mean, all of a sudden he showed up being this like regular sized dude. All of a sudden it looked like he'd be one of the Avengers. Right. But then he started getting hurt a lot. So he kind of backed off of, let's get yoked. And he's still a big guy, but he was a cartoon character for a little while.
Right.
Hitting 900-yard drives and all that other mess. And it seems like sometimes you're smart and you're innovative, but you don't need to act like you're smarter than everybody else.
Right. People tend to not like that guy.
No, we don't. None of us like the guy that this one. Oh, but seriously? Or no, in fact.
Yeah, the well actually guy.
Yes, well actually, that guy. No one likes that.
No.
And DeChambeau came off like that guy. And it seems like maybe, I don't know, somebody got in his ear, maybe a little bit of not winning humbled him a bit, whatever it is.
Hey, buddy, read the room.
Exactly. Maybe the PEDs wore off, I don't know. But all of a sudden, he doesn't seem like he's as acerbic as he was for a while. But we'll see. But DeChambeau shot off the pace at the U.S. Open. And, of course, we could see the end of the NBA Finals coming up, and the Stanley Cup Finals could both be sweeps.
Yeah, this weekend, not the most compelling matchups. And I know we thought that Dallas may grab one, just being at home. And they got off to a good start the other night. But, yeah, I mean, if Boston finishes this thing off tonight, I'm not going to be surprised. And we'll see what Luke is going to complain about after that one.
I feel like Dallas gets one. You got to win another one. You got to win one at home, right?
I thought they were going to get Game 3, though, because that seems to kind of be the thing. All right, first game back at home, momentum kind of on your side here, and crowds in your favor, and they just completely gave it away. And they had strong comeback towards the end of the game, but Boston's just a better team, it seems like.
They're the better team. I said this before. Somebody, when I got asked who's going to win the series, I said Boston because they're better on paper. But take away the top two guys. There's no team in the NBA better 3 through 6 than the Celtics.
Right.
And you look at this series, who's been beating Dallas at times, the 3 through 6 guys. Porzingis in game 1 couldn't miss. Holiday's been really good. White hit the gigantic 3 in the fourth quarter. Boston's just better 3 through 6. There's no team better 1 through 6 in the NBA than the Celtics.
Right.
And you're seeing it in the series.
Right.
So we might see a sweep there. Edmonton lost again. Not a surprise. Florida's built for this. Goaltending, depth, defense. So it looks like the Panthers eventually will win the Stanley Cup as well. So, and then we'll just be rolling with baseball and talking season.
We're going to be in the middle of the dog days of summer of baseball where, outside of Cloninger and Jay, who freak out about the Braves losing on a random Tuesday night.
Yes.
Which they've not been having a lot of fun as of late. The Braves finally got the win yesterday, but your Orioles were taking care of the Braves for a couple games
Got the first two.
Got the first two.
And then I figure you lose the third one, but you win the first two.
You know what's so funny is yesterday's game, and it was a midday game, but seeing people react because the Braves got 2 runs in the first inning after Ozuna drove a couple guys in. They're like, wow, they actually drove some guys in after getting them on base. That's amazing.
Well, that's the thing with the Braves is, first of all, there's been injuries, obviously.
Sure.
But before Acuna Jr. got hurt, he wasn't hitting for power. They stopped. It's like they got tired from hitting all those home runs last year, and they're just weak now. They don't have any energy.
Acuna wasn't having a great season. Riley's kind of been nowhere to be found. Ozuna's really been the only consistent guy, when it comes to hitting. And obviously the pitching's kind of been all over the place. You've had the injuries. And the funny thing is they're still in position to be in the playoffs. So you
got to relax if you're a Braves fan.
You can, as long as you shore things up in the second half of the season, you should be okay.
Right? When the Braves won the World Series, they won 88 games.
Yes.
Let's not forget this. The last 2 years of juggernaut, they've gone in the playoffs, exiting really quick.
Yeah, they have.
So you guys got to get in the dance.
And let's see, you're 15-ish games away from the halfway point of the season. So you still got time.
Just relax. There's a trading deadline. You can add some pieces, but then look. Besides Acuna Jr., who had an historic year,
right?
So did Olsen. Look, Ronald Acuna Jr. has a track record of being a high-level player.
Yes.
Olsen was never that guy that he was last year.
No.
So for anybody to think he's going to permanently be that guy, no. He's not. He was that guy for a year.
Sure.
He's typically a dude who can hit you 30 bombs. He's going to walk some, have a good slugging percentage, not have a great average, and strike out a ton.
Right.
And play Gold Glove first base.
Right.
If he goes back to that guy, you're fine. He's just not the guy you saw last year. Was typically not Olsen.
I was going to say that's one of those anomaly seasons that most guys typically use to leverage a huge contract that otherwise isn't justified. And the next year is like, why are we paying this guy all this money? He's not producing.
But he did it once, got paid. So the Braves will be fine.
By the way, 9 games back at the Phillies right now.
Yeah, and you know what? The Phillies are good, but we'll see how good the Phillies are through 162. They're a playoff team, obviously.
Sure.
All right, back to the Mainieri thing real quick. And we heard... we were talking about how, Paul Mainieri talked about, hey, I'll hand this thing over to Mainieri after 5 years. Well, could that happen? Sure. But here's what I'm thinking. 5 years is a long time. 3 years is a long time.
Yep.
You just never know. And coaches in wait, and no one said Mainieri's a coach in waiting. Let's just get that out of the way now. But those kind of scenarios very rarely even work. Will Muschamp was a coach in waiting at Texas. I was telling you today, James Franklin was a coach in waiting at Maryland.
Yeah.
Usually the coach in waiting takes off for another job. I'll give you one. Mike Hopkins was a coach in waiting for Jim Boeheim forever. Finally said, screw it, I'm tired of waiting.
Yeah.
I'm going to UW.
And look, with Mainieri being the highest paid assistant, if this team is as successful as we hope they can be, he's going to get offers over the next couple of years from who knows whatever program is going to be looking for a head coach. So he may get an offer to go, to Penn State, and it might be enticing. And it's like, you know what? I could wait a couple of years to maybe get this job if Mainieri decides he's done, or I can go ahead and jump on this and try to get myself back into head coaching ranks at a Power 5 school.
Yeah, so we just never know where this is going to end up. So that's speculation. I get it. I do. It's funny. There is a percentage of this fan base just loves Monty.
Which, again, I don't think Mainieri understood what he did when he kind of fanned the flames by saying, well, yeah, in 5 years, I think I'm going to have in a good position where he can just take it over, because those people that are so on the Mainieri bandwagon, they're only going to take that and run with it.
Sure. And by the way, our poll question of the day yesterday, the biggest upside of the Paul Mainieri hire, 34% bring in a loaded staff, 30% keeping Mainieri, 23% Omaha experience with Mainieri, 13% retaining key players. Again, we always appreciate all the votes. Over 1,000 folks viewed, about 160 voted, so thank you very much. But again, the portion of the fan base that loves Monty thought that was a key thing to keep him. I thought it was a key thing to keep him because he's a good assistant coach. The players love him. And I think for continuity's sake, I thought it was good to keep him on the staff. Plus, he's a good assistant coach.
Yeah,
he's a good recruiter.
It helps you maintain the roster that you have and the recruits that you have. And again, as an assistant coach, really, really good. And again, they paid him, just as such.
We will come back. Speaking of Monty Lee, talking about, the idea of the players advocating for him. We're going to get that. And swing back to Paul Mainieri on the postgame show, talking about criticism from a fan base. That's coming up, and the greatest day in the history of the world. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head, Ed Bird up until 3, then Jay and Elijah from Angry Fish in Lexington here on the game. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head, Ed Bird here on the game. Get back to some sound from yesterday. The festivities over at Cockaboose for Paul Mainieri. The introductory press conference for the new USC baseball coach for first greatest day in history of the world. Sponsored by 1-800-GOT-JUNK. We'll just get a couple of these in real quick. One, possibly the headline of this day in sports history, or the greatest day in the history of the world. 1998, Michael Jordan scores 45. The iconic steal from Karl Malone. And then after the little push-off of Byron Russell, the game-winning jumper with 5 seconds left, Bulls win their 6th NBA championship, 2 three-peats, 6 straight full seasons, 6 straight championships for Michael Jordan and the Bulls.
In terms of highlights in the history of the NBA, do you think that might be the most replayed one? It's got to be up there, right?
It's right there. Do you mean just the game-winning shot?
Just that shot in general. Like, of all just single highlights in NBA history, that's got to be one of the, if not the top played ones.
Especially when you look at basketball.
Sure.
Absolutely. And it is. Look, again, Utah Jazz fans will say this day that Jordan pushed off. Do I think he pushed off? Yeah, he pushed off.
Yeah.
To get space, he pushed off. But you know what he did after that? Made the shot.
It did. Between that and his iconic dunk, that is, the catalyst for the Jumpman logo, like those got to be up there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he just, look, when you grow up in the MJ era, and then look at all these with whoever you are. Like, people grew up with Jordan, they're Jordan people. A lot of people grew up with LeBron, they're LeBron people. People grew up with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, they're Kareem people.
Right.
Grew up with Oscar Robertson, you're an Oscar Robertson person. That's why I never get in a fight over GOATs. I think it's dumb.
Right.
But, Jordan, the thing about Jordan was just, losing was like poison to him.
Sure.
And if you ever get to read the Jordan Rules, which is a phenomenal book, Jordan, punching Steve Kerr in practice, basically ruining the career of a guy named Brad Sellers, making guys cry.
Yeah.
In practice, he was like even in practice, he was a killer.
I don't think there's anybody that was more of an ultimate competitor than Michael Jordan is. And that even translates to today and the stuff that he's doing outside of being an athlete. Like, he's still just the most competitive guy in the world. And, some people are just wired that way. And I think that, he obviously had the natural ability and the natural skill to be a great basketball player, but having that just raw nastiness of being a competitor, I think, put him over the edge.
He made up stuff.
Yeah.
He'd make up stuff just to get mad.
That was the funniest thing about the Last Dance documentary is like, oh, yeah, did that guy actually say that to you at dinner? No, but I just pretended that he did.
Oh, yeah.
I needed some kind of edge for the next day.
The Calbert Cheney thing with they were the Bullets at the time, when Cheney scored like 40 on the Bulls in a playoff game, and there was a thing that Cheney said something to Jordan, and Jordan went nuts the next. And then the Bullets had no chance, and the Bulls wiped them out, and Jordan went crazy. And you go back, nothing was really said.
Yeah.
Just needed something. Needed some juice for something.
Yeah.
Just needed something. I just made something up to get me angry. By the way, the Lakers also won this day their 15th championship in 2009.
Yep.
Kobe and Shaq had big days. Kobe was the MVP, scored 30. San Antonio in 2007. Won the NBA championship, beating that Cleveland team. Maybe the worst team in finals history in my lifetime was that 07 Cavalier team that LeBron dragged into the NBA
I was going to say,
finals.
that was LeBron and a couple of schlubs.
Boobie Gibson and just Ilgauskas and just a crew of...
Hey, what's your game plan? Get the ball to LeBron.
Yeah, and get out of the way.
Yeah.
That team was... I
accidentally took a shot. LeBron scolded me. As he should have.
I've always said this about that situation. That might be more impressive. LeBron, I know the East, it's not like a great year in the East, but still, LeBron getting that crew of dudes to the NBA Finals might be more of an achievement than winning championships.
I definitely think so. And, that's where people kind of bring up, the debate of Michael Jordan and the rings versus what LeBron has to this point is, LeBron didn't always have the caliber of talent around him that Jordan had during some of his years there with the Bulls. Now, obviously, as his career's gone along, they've built some super teams and dream teams that have helped him win championships too. But you definitely can't knock LeBron for, being the best guy on some of those teams.
I mean, that team was, oh my God. And San Antonio, I think, is the most underrated dynasty maybe in the history of sports.
There's a really good Saturday Night Live bit. And it's really kind of like one of those like digital short things they do about LeBron and the no names of the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'll have to send it to you. It's pretty good.
I do want that would be good. And again, San Antonio won their championship. No one talks about the Spurs because they were boring.
Right.
Those guys, they weren't controversial. They weren't getting arrested. They weren't doing all sorts. They just went and beat you and then went home and watched TV. That's kind of who the Spurs were. They weren't those guys. All right, greatest day in the history of the world, sponsored by 1-800-GOT-JUNK. Let's go back to the soundboard there, Ed Bird. Paul Mainieri on the postgame show yesterday with Jay and Elijah, the exclusive we had with the new coach before his presser. Cut 14, talking about criticism from a rabid fan base.
Another question I used to always get was, what about criticism? And I say, listen, there's only one thing worse than criticism, and that's apathy.
Yeah.
I don't want apathy. I coached at LSU, and I'm going to coach at South Carolina because people do care.
Right.
Well, if people care and things aren't going so well, they deserve to be able to say what they want to say. It's not personal. I never have taken any criticisms personally. I don't. Nobody likes to be criticized, but honestly, nobody's more critical of me than me.
Right.
When I look in the mirror every day, I have to be honest with myself. That's another lesson my father taught me when I was young. That, the only person you really need to satisfy is yourself, the guy you look at in the mirror every morning. Because if you're honest with yourself, and you've prepared yourself, then you need to be honest about it. If you did the best you could, that's all you can ask of yourself. But if you didn't be the best that you could, and there's a reason why, you need to address that within yourself. So I've always probably been harder on myself than anybody's ever been on me. So criticism really doesn't bother me because, I like to think that we're going to succeed. You can't win every game.
Sure.
I mean, baseball's just not built that way. And sometimes we have to lose a game to learn something about players on which ones you can't or cannot count on. You want to win them all. But listen, I want us to be better as the season progresses than be great at the beginning and then fade.
I mean, that is the worst thing, is apathy or lack of belief. And I think this fan base had gotten to, I don't know if it got into apathy, but it got into a lack of belief. I mean, I was talking to people who were out at the Georgia series, the Arkansas series, and typically this fan base would be geeked for those series. And I had people say to me, there just was a lack of juice.
It just kind of felt like this team had gotten to that but stage. It's like, they're doing good right now in the middle of April, but we know there's a collapse coming. And then obviously that happened at the end of the regular season. And despite, what they did in the SEC tournament, I think most people said, but when they get in the NCAA tournament, I don't think this is a success going to be sustained. It obviously wasn't, which is why we have a new head coach now. So, people have been apathetic towards the Kingston era for a long time. But again, when you look at the resume that Mainieri brings to the table and everything that he said in the presser yesterday, that should be enough to juice up this fan base when the season rolls around next year.
Look, you're never going to make 100% of your fan base happy. And in our little Twitter X poll, 86% of the fan base was happy about this hire.
Sure.
But I feel for most people I've talked to that are Gamecock fans since the Mainieri thing popped, they're like, well, we got a guy that knows how to get to Omaha.
Right.
And that, to me, is the feeling of most folks is, oh yeah, that guy knows. He knows people in Omaha, like you and I were talking about. He knows the good restaurants.
Sure.
He knows his way around Omaha. He knows good hotels. So they have a guy who can get you back to where you want to go and where you feel like your rightful place is to be at some point.
Right.
In Omaha. All right, we will come back. Firehouse Sub text of the hour. Also, get a little bit more sound before we take off here. Maybe get some more remarks from Paul Mainieri on the postgame show. Just talk about what he missed about coaching. We'll get to that and maybe some other comments as well before we get out. Halftime show, Terry Fort, Ed Bird, Tyler Head here on the game. All right, time for our Firehouse Up text of the hour at 803-404-6100. What do you got there, man?
Jim weighs in and says, a good coach will literally use every single tool they can to put the best team on the field to get the best results. No matter what it is, they're going to use every one.
Yeah, I mean, a good coach, like Jim said, looks for everything. Like I said, you don't pigeonhole yourself in just one department, right?
Sure.
Because like teams that win typically are the most well-rounded and the most versatile.
Of course.
Because if you have one plan, like even baseball, and we'll go Major League Baseball, teams that are just home run power heavy. Yes, the teams that hit the most home runs in baseball today typically win, right?
Yep.
But also, at some point, those teams are going to need to be able to manufacture runs.
Yep.
If you can't hit a home run, what's your plan B?
Right.
Can you score runs without benefit of a homer? And I always look at teams, how many runs do you score if you're not hitting home runs? Or like strikeout rates. The teams with lower strikeout rates in the postseason typically are better because they make contact.
Right.
And they're in these 2-1, 3-2 slobber knocker games, and they've got to find a way to put the ball in play, advance runners, score dirty runs, so to speak.
Right.
And what Paul Mainieri talked about yesterday that I liked was the idea, look, we need to be good situationally.
Mm-hmm.
And the little things like running bases, playing defense, stuff that, people don't talk about unless you screw it up, right?
Sure.
Nobody talks about your base running until you screw up your base running.
Exactly.
Just like errors. Defense, you kind of take for granted the ball hit right at a guy who's going to field it and make a play.
We assume so.
Till they don't.
Yep.
And that's just that. Those little things. It's like football. Never talk about the offensive lineman until he holds on a touchdown.
Sure.
Or who cares about the long snapper until he long snaps it into the stands.
Well, and D1 baseball is a really good breakdown of all the analytics of the 8 teams that are in Omaha. And you look here, and obviously green is good and red is bad. Florida being the exception because their numbers suggest they should be nowhere near Omaha, but they somehow still made it. Most of these teams green across the board with the exception of 1 or 2 red areas. So again, that really tells you that the most well-rounded teams are the ones that are playing for the national championship out in Omaha now, and that's what South Carolina needs to be. And of course, over the course of a season, you have ebbs and flows where sometimes your offense is a little bit sluggish, but that's where you're pitching your defense pick things up. You can still win games that way. You just can't have all those things not functioning at the right time, which, of course, South Carolina did run into at times this season. So, again, need to be a better, well-rounded team and do all the little things the right way to be more successful going forward.
If you have a huge weakness, the sports gods find it at the worst possible time.
Sure.
They just do. And we've seen that. There's teams that do something really well, right? And there's a couple things that they don't do well. So the things they do really well has to cover for stuff their shortcomings.
Right.
But eventually the shortcoming bites you in the tail.
Usually.
Very rarely will you see a team win a championship if they do something poorly.
Right.
Because whatever you do poorly eventually gets you.
Right.
And that's why you see well-rounded teams are the ones that usually, like you do the Omaha hot chart. You see right there analytically, besides Florida, the rest of these teams, Florida's a great study, and we haven't really talked a lot about the College World Series, but Florida barely gets in, barely over 500, got in only on their strength of schedule.
Yep.
But there was more talent there than their one-loss record.
There is, and Kevin O'Sullivan's just a really good tournament coach. So you give that team a chance to get into the tournament, they're usually going to make something happen with. Same thing with LSU, a team that was pretty unremarkable for most of the season, but went on a tear in the SEC tournament and didn't get as far as they wanted to in the NCAA tournament. But some teams kind of have that identity.
Well, and some guys are just good tournament coaches. Kevin O'Sullivan, I think, he's been to Omaha, 9 times now or something crazy.
Yeah.
Won it in 17. I mean, some guys just thrive in that tournament atmosphere.
Obviously, Coach Mainieri, a pretty good tournament coach himself, won multiple SECs, Big East titles, obviously the national championships and the trips to Omaha as well. So that's another thing that he's bringing to the table at South Carolina.
All right, Ed Bird, let's grab one more cup before we bust on out of here. We will. We did not have. We have time.
Probably not.
Probably not. I'll tell you what. Let's get to go to cut 18. Terry Rooney on recruiting to win in college baseball.
Here's the thing I tell every recruit. Very simple. There's 2 things, okay, that I believe the best players in the country want. The best players in the country. Number 1, they want to go somewhere they're going to develop. They put themselves in position to either pitch or play in the major leagues, number one. And number two, they want to go somewhere where they feel like they have a legitimate chance to get to Omaha and win a national championship. All the best players in the country want those two things. We have that right here at Carolina. Like, we have that. So when you're recruiting that level of player, yeah, you're going to deal with the draft. We should. You just got to understand how the balance of it, and as you get down the road. And obviously that all comes from relationships. What will they sign for? How much do they value in education? All of those. There's a lot of moving pieces to that. But those two variables, that's whatever the best players want.
Right.
That's what they want. And we've got the chance to do that here.
Yeah.
And there's Terry Rooney about recruiting, the recruiting coordinator, by the way.
Sounds good to me.
Fine job, my friend. Good work. Ed Bird, great job as well. Coming up next, post-game show from Angry Fish in Lexington from 3 to 6. Go have a craft beer. Hang out with Jay and Elijah. We are done. Enjoy your weekend. We'll be back again on Monday. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, Ed Bird here on the game.